Chapter 1. After dragging it out for so long, it's finally time to publish a new book. First of all, I would like to apologize to everyone here. I was originally supposed to publish a new book in May this year, but it has been delayed until now. Of course, there is a reason for this. Those who are familiar with this industry know that the website has experienced a huge upheaval this year, and I have even terminated my contract with Zongheng. But why am I back to publish a new book on Zongheng? Because after a series of hard work by my team and myself, the website has stabilized. I started publishing on this platform in 2010, and it has been 5 years now. Immortality, Holy King, and Emperor of the Cosmos. The total word count of these 3 books is close to 15 million. It can be said that most of my efforts have been spent on the website, and I have also witnessed the ups and downs of this platform from small to large, from germinating to growing up. To be honest, I really hate to part with this platform. In fact, the extent of the upheaval this year is not even tens of thousands of words can describe it clearly. But everyone can see that the hottest thing in the capital market is the precious energy department and Vang. The situation should be similar. Am I Wang sure? That can't be right? Although my name is Wang Zhong. We authors love literature, and we only hope to have a stable creative environment so that we can carve out the best words with peace of mind. Our editorial management team also loves literature, and we only hope to obtain more benefits for the authors and promote good work. We have our own sentiments, and we also hope that there are people who understand sentiments to support our career, our sentiments, and our ideals. Fortunately, we found this person, and at the same time, we thank him for his generosity and appreciation. Above, my identity is as a core member of the team. Now, my identity is that of an author. When it comes to writing books, I have always felt guilty towards everyone, because I have always wanted to write something that everyone is satisfied with, but what I have written is not even satisfactory to me. The last few books were a little more gorgeous, but they lacked a lot of spirituality. This can't be helped. I have a total of 7 books, from the original Buddha to Tao, Black Mountain Demon, The Romance of Dragon and Snake, Sun God, Immortality, Holy King, and Emperor of the Cosmos. I have written 25 million words, and it has been 10 years. This has made me realize that human strength is limited. After all, I am not the protagonist of a novel, who will always improve, always be full of passion and passion. After 10 years of writing, to be honest, I'm already exhausted. My thoughts are no longer what they used to be. Before writing about the Emperor of the Cosmos, I had already declared that I would write a peerless divine book. In the end, I disappointed myself and everyone. Of course, there were many things that affected my mood. However, this was a promise that I had yet to fulfill, so I didn't mind saying it out loud. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. In my new book, I hope that I can regain my feelings and write about my philosophy. Let's not talk too much about it. I've been writing for 10 years, and I've experienced too many things. There have been ups and downs, and I've seen all kinds of people, good and bad, kind and evil. Some provided timely help, some added insult to injury, some advanced and retreated together, some watched coldly from the sidelines. Many friends gathered and dispersed, leaving only a few behind. The fans who were with me in the past have also disappeared. The world has changed. How many decades can a person have? By now, half of one's life had passed. Many things that were considered important in the past were no longer important. Just as the preface of the Orchid Pavilion said, the things that I liked in the past have become things of the past in the blink of an eye. After 10 years, perhaps the taste of my new book has changed. Everyone can leisurely enjoy it and laugh. Those who praise or criticize are all friends, passers-by, and even more so, fate. Fate comes and goes. If everyone thinks it's good, they come. If they think it's bad, they leave. If I think it's good, I write it. If I think it's bad, I don't write it. Every thought of a person is unpredictable and unpredictable, so I'll just go along with it. Chapter 2. Dragon Talisman was close to 400,000 words and was about to be published once more. This was my 8th book. The first book was Buddha is the Way, followed by The Witch of Black Mountain, The Romance of the Dragon and Snake, Young God, Eternal Life, Holy King, Emperor of the Cosmos, and then Dragon Symbol. It had been 10 years since the first chapter of Buddha is the Way was published on the 20th of February, 2006. He had published a new book, published it, finished it, then another new book, published it again, and finished it again. For an experienced person like me, there is really nothing much to say. Actually, I also wrote a short chapter called Fist Suppressing Mountains and Rivers. I suddenly realized that short chapters were more suitable for me. Long chapters were just too tiring. However, the 10 years of writing books, the most youthful period of his life, had been dedicated to these 8 books. It had been a very emotional experience. He had benefited a lot from writing books and had made many friends. There had been a few ups and downs, but the final outcome could be considered satisfactory. Okay, let's not talk about this. Let's talk about Dragon Talisman. I changed the way I wrote Dragon Talisman. Everyone should have noticed that the pace of the book is a little slower and the supporting characters have spent a lot of time. For example, Heaven Talisman Emperor is much more popular than the main character. This is something that I am really happy about. Dragon Talisman is similar to Sun God, but it is totally different. In terms of the cultivation system, I studied it and came up with the 36 Tao realm changes. Each change has a detailed description and theory to support it. After I mentioned it, I welcome other authors to use it to spread the theory. I have changed the Xianxia and Xuanhuan realms time and time again. Each book has its own new thing, but in truth, it is still the same. I wrote Dragon Talisman slowly. Slow life, slow pace. In the past, the main character was quick and in just a few 100,000 words, the main character would start to kill everyone. Especially the short chapter Fist Suppressing Mountains and Rivers. The main character is invincible and no one is his match. Actually, I feel really good writing it like that. However, although the protagonist of the book, Dragon Fu, was still weak, he had his strength. He was able to endure, never impatient, and never gave up on himself. No matter what difficulties he faces, he will deal with it calmly and always maintain a calm heart. This is what I have comprehended in life. The scariest thing about a person is to lose their calm and make mistakes again and again. Even if the main character is so ordinary, as long as he reflects on himself and works hard, he will have huge achievement. Okay, that is all. I wish all my readers who have followed me for the next 10 years. I hope that in the next 10 years we can still be together. Chapter 3. In the vast land there would be changes in the future. In the chaos, dragons and snakes would rise together. Who would be a true dragon and who would be a python? Or could all living beings in the world become dragons? The imperial court, the sects of the pugilistic world, the otherworldly immortal Tao, the 1,000-year-old aristocratic families, the barbarians, the fiend celestials, the demons, the ancient witchcraft, and thousands of other factions were entangled with each other. Everything had life and death. They were all living beings. Some had thoughts, some had no thoughts, some had no thoughts, and some had no thoughts. They were all living beings. The void also collapsed. The heavenly Tao also sank. They were all living beings. What was a dragon? A dragon that could uproot mountains and rivers and overturn rivers and seas. A dragon that constantly strived to improve oneself and bravely forged ahead. A dragon that was moral and enlightened the people. A dragon that had literary talent and was passed down through the ages. A dragon that was hot-blooded and righteous. A dragon that was generous and fearless in the face of death. A dragon that was merciful and compassionate. A dragon that punished evil and encouraged good. A dragon that suppressed evil and subdued demons. A dragon that was humble and respectful. A dragon that was as gentle as jade. A dragon that was beautiful and intelligent. A dragon that was quiet and elegant. A dragon that was unyielding and unyielding. This was a story of all living beings and dragons. The ninth 5, the dragon soars in the sky. The upper 9, the dragon regrets. Chapter 4. Build the Great Wall to repel barbarians, destroy hundreds of countries to unify the world, cut thousands of mountains to fill the sea of sin, destroy evil sects to correct people's hearts, kill evildoers to pacify the great wilderness, eliminate treacherous officials to correct the rules of the court, establish etiquette to educate the world, build ceremonies to pass down for generations, abolish obscene worship to confer titles to the gods. These were the top 10 achievements of the great Yong dynasty's Heavenly Talisman Emperor. Heavenly Talisman was the title of the year. Heaven is the supreme being. The talisman was the pattern of the law. The emperor used this as the title of the year, meaning to operate the law on behalf of heaven. All living beings, ghosts and gods had to submit. The great Yong dynasty was located in the land of infinity. This land was called Infinity. It was truly boundless. Even those who had cultivated the 36 transformations of the Tao realm could only see a drop in the ocean. Summer of the 14th year of Heavenly Talisman. Capital City, Imperial Palace Great Hall. Imperial children were studying in the scorching heat. There are floods and droughts in some places. Starving people are everywhere. How do we pacify them? How do we provide relief? Prince 19, you go first. The teacher, Third Lu, had a long beard and white hair. He wore a scholarly robe and had a calm demeanor. He was the crown prince's young master, Liang Tao. They can eat meat if they don't have food. Prince 19 stood up. He was 14 years old and looked silly. His clothes were wrinkled. Ha ha ha. 19 is really an idiot. He's going to be punished again today. The people can eat meat if they don't have food? If this gets out, everyone in the world will scold him. It will be a joke 1,000 years later. Everyone burst into laughter. Is this kid really stupid, or is he hiding his strength and biding his time, pretending to be stupid? A woman in red said softly, "No matter what, we have to be wary of this kid. After all, he has the bloodline of the Xian dynasty." Originally, women were not allowed to show their faces in public. However, after Heavenly Talisman Emperor ascended the throne, he broke the old custom and encouraged women to study and practice martial arts. After many years of reform, the custom was extremely open. Gu Chunsha, stand outside for 2 hours. Your punishment is to go to the library to organize books for 3 days. Crown Prince's young master Liang Tao pointed outside. Gu Chunsha was the prince who ate meat just now. He was ranked 19th, yes. Yes. Gu Chunsha nodded and walked out stupidly. Crack. When he got up, he almost tripped over the chair. He looked as pathetic as one could imagine. This guy can be considered useless. His lower body is unstable, and his martial arts are sloppy. It seems that he really isn't a threat. A few princes exchanged glances. Your martial arts are too weak. The lady in red laughed coldly. My great Yonko was founded on martial prowess. Whether or not a prince is able to gain the favor of the emperor depends on his strength. Gu Chunsha is already 15 years old. He has missed the best age to train in martial arts. It would be difficult for him to achieve anything. This is one less threat to my Lu family. The princes in the academy all had their own thoughts, but Gu Chunsha, who was punished to stand under the scorching sun, had a myriad of thoughts running through his mind. It had been more than 500 years since the founding of the Daong dynasty. The founding ancestor Gu Taxian had leveled the world, and the successive emperors had dominated the world with their scholarly and martial arts skills. Especially the current Heavenly Talisman Emperor Gu Taxian, who was well versed in martial arts, had pushed the influence of the imperial court to the extreme. Even the evildoers and Taoist immortals beyond the Great Wall did not dare to act presumptuously. They trembled with fear for fear of being annihilated by the imperial court. There was no familial love in the imperial family. Fathers and sons suspected each other, brothers killed each other, and the palace ladies fought for favor. They resorted to every conceivable means. It could be said that every step was treacherous. The slightest bit of carelessness would cause one to be framed and lose one's reputation. Gu Chunsha had more than 40 brothers and 13 sisters. He had the least background. A prince's background was mainly based on the influence of his mother's family. He had brothers and uncles who were great generals and held military power. There were governors. There were peerless experts. And there were millennium-old aristocratic families. And Gu Chensha's mother was a princess of Great Yonko's enemy country, Xian dynasty. She was sent here for marriage. Later on, Great Yonko sent troops to destroy Xian dynasty. All the nobles, big and small, were killed. Even Emperor Xian set himself on fire in the treasury. When she heard that the country was destroyed, the princess also committed suicide. This caused Gu Chunsha to have no one to rely on in the imperial palace. Not to mention the other princes bullying him, even the imperial guards, palace maids, and eunuchs dared to deal with him. Bullying him was a small matter. There were many people who wanted to kill him. Back then, Xian dynasty and Great Yong dynasty were at odds. The two countries fought for 100 years and formed a blood feud. It wasn't until Heavenly Talisman Emperor ascended the throne that Xian dynasty was completely destroyed. In this war, Great Yong dynasty lost an imperial prince and several marshals, as well as dozens of generals. The two countries fought with all their might. After conquering the capital of Xian dynasty, they didn't stop fighting for 3 days. All the troops massacred the city and killed all the commoners. Even now, there were still commoners of Xian dynasty plotting a rebellion. The blood feud hadn't been forgotten. Because of this, many elders of the imperial court who massacred Xian dynasty were hostile to Gu Chunsha. There was no way for him to become the emperor. He might not even be able to keep his life. Fortunately, he had suffered since he was young and knew how to hide his strength and bide his time. He pretended to be crazy all day long and managed to survive. The discussion in the classroom continued. Lu Baiwe, tell me, how should we provide disaster relief? The Crown Prince's Grand Tutor, Liang Tao, pointed at the woman in red. Lu Baiwe stood up. First, kill the local officials and say that they embezzled the relief rations to appease the victims. What if the local officials were honest and just caused the commoners to rebel because of a natural disaster? Liang Tao asked. I remember in the history books that there was a great emperor who went to war. The army lacked rations and was full of complaints. Thus, the general beheaded the grain officer and said that he embezzled the army's rations. Thus, the morale of the army was stabilized. Lu Baiue's eyes gleamed coldly. That's too heartless. Liang Tao frowned. Benevolence and righteousness are the priority in governing a country. If we don't borrow the head of the local officials, how many people will die when the starving commoners are bewitched by the unruly commoners and attack the city? When my brother went to Inzhou to provide disaster relief, the villages were on fire and the trees were filled with smoke. There were even evil cultists and unruly commoners fanning the flames. At that time, there was no more food to provide relief. If my brother didn't kill the county officials to appease the commoners, he would behead hundreds of troublemakers. That would affect several provinces and damage the foundation of the court. Lu Baiue's voice was like metal. If a place starts a riot, no matter how honest the local officials are, it will not be good for the people. They must die to atone for their crimes. The girl in red was called Lu Baiue. She was not a member of the royal family, but the daughter of Duke Yuan Lu Chongshao. Most of the students in the academy were from the royal family, but there were also some who were children of meritorious officials. The Lu family followed the founding emperor and conquered the world. They were favored by many generations of emperors and became even more glorious in the Heavenly Talisman dynasty. Lu Chongshao was Duke Yuan. His two younger brothers, Lu Chongtian and Lu Chongyun, were Marquis Wei Ling and Marquis Wuan. Other than that, many of the Liu family's children were generals and high officials. Thus, the Liu family was given the nickname Liu Banqiao. With such power, even ordinary princes had to give way to the Liu family. Your brother contributed to the disaster relief in Yinzhou and was personally rewarded by the emperor. The crown prince's grand tutor, Liang Tao, nodded. However, the way to rule a country is based on kindness. Killing too much is harmful to one's virtue. Secondly, it is easy to develop a cruel personality. I hope you can go back and tell your brother what I said. I will. Liu Baiwei did not contradict him. She just nodded and sat down. Cicadas. Cicadas. The cicadas were making a lot of noise in the forest. The eunuchs used bamboo poles to wrap spider webs and stick them down one by one. The afternoon sun was already making people dizzy. With the addition of the cicadas, Gu Chensha could not take it anymore. While he was being punished, the literature class had already ended and they entered the Hall of Martial Arts to learn martial arts. Baiwei, Liang Tao is the leader of the righteous faction in the court. He has impeached your father. This time, he is lecturing us about kindness and righteousness. I think there is a deeper meaning to it. The local official your brother killed during the disaster was his student. A prince approached Liu Baiwei. He was dressed in a silver robe and looked rather dashing. He couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as Gu Chensha's foolishness. Who doesn't know how to sit and discuss? Liu Baiwei only laughed coldly. There are too many righteous factions in the court. They talk all day and do nothing for the people's livelihood. The silver-clothed prince did not mind. He looked at Gu Chensha, who was standing outside. Do you think this brat is really stupid or is he pretending to be? I think he became like this when you hit him in the head when he was 10. You were imprisoned for 10 months because of that. Old 14, don't talk nonsense. He was beaten up by old 10. You were there. Liu Baiwei's expression turned cold. The silver-clothed young prince was ranked 14th, and his name was Gu Yunsha. He had a faint smile on his face. Weren't you the one who instigated this matter? You said that this brat spoke ill of old 10, and old 10 was also an impatient person, beating him up without even asking. Your father knew this, or else he wouldn't have imprisoned you. Old 10 was also punished by the imperial clan court. So what? Liu Baiwei disapprovingly said, My eldest brother died when he attacked Xian City, and 2 of my uncles died during that siege. My cousin was poisoned and murdered by the remnants of the Xian dynasty. Those vile spawn of the Xian dynasty are still haunting us, and my father was even assassinated last year. Do you think I won't have a good impression of this brat? He is my father's flesh and blood. Now that he has become a fool, we can't go overboard with some things. Old 14, Gu Yunsha smiled. Old 14, don't pretend. You've punished him many times over the years. Liu Baiwei flicked her fingernails. You ordered those eunuchs to deduct his monthly allowance. You didn't even give him the medicinal pills that a prince needs to practice martial arts. Now, he can't learn either literature or martial arts. Isn't that what you want? Also, when my mother was alive, this boy fought for favor with my mother and played many tricks. If I don't hit him when he's down, when will I? Gu Yunsha looked outside. Baiwei, I heard that your martial arts have improved a lot recently. Why don't you show me? Liu Baiwei didn't say anything. He just pressed his palm on the wooden pillar. Kacha kacha. The wooden pillar suddenly exploded, and the wooden shrapnel scattered on the ground. It was simple and unpretentious, but it had a destructive power. Pure Een God Palm, your martial arts cultivation has reached Grandmaster Realm? Gu Yunsha's eyelids twitched. The 4 mortal realms are at the beginning, reaching the next level, reaching perfection, and reaching the peak. Martial artists, warriors, masters, and grandmasters are actually just mortals. Only the 36 transformations of Tao realm is the true meaning. Liu Baiwei always showed off her abilities. It isn't easy to step into Tao realm. Even with our royal family's resources and cultivation techniques, there are only 4 princes who can step into Tao realm. 14th Prince Gu Yunsha frowned. To break through to Tao realm, talent and luck are the most important. If one is talented but not lucky, then it is useless. Lu Baiwa looked at the sky and said, once the state of Tao has changed, one can consume qi and abstain from eating. Then, one can be free from the mortal world and live by consuming qi. With a strong spirit, one can absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. At that time, one's body will be free of impurities. Baiwe, the Pure In Sutra that you are currently cultivating was created by the ancient Pure Maiden. Imperial Father subdued the Pure Maiden sect and obtained this sutra. He actually bestowed it to you to cultivate. It looks like Imperial Father dotes on you even more than the other princes. 14th Prince Gu Yunsha's tone was filled with envy. This Pure Maiden Sutra is an emperor-grade cultivation method. The ancient Pure Maiden was an ancient emperor's empress. My cloud contact technique is only king grade. I heard that the 7th Prince has reached Tao Realm 8 transformation and the Samadhi true fire. As long as he passes the tribulation, he will be able to cultivate the 9 transformation glass jade body. With such cultivation, he should be the leader of the princes. Lu Baiwe asked with a deeper meaning, the first 9 changes of Tao realm, eating energy and not eating food, 9 bulls and 2 tigers, copper skin and iron bones, swallowing gold to turn into stone, gathering energy from all orifices, cultivating energy to leave the ground and fly into the sky. Samadhi true fire, glass jade body. All of them are linked together to lay the foundations of the celestial path. Once one forms the 9 changes glass jade body, one will be free from disease and illness. One will be pure and can live for 300 to 500 years. Scoff. 7th Prince is the Empress' biological son. Who knows how many fortuitous encounters and experts nurtured him to reach that stage. It is natural that his cultivation far exceeds ours. But the Samadhi true fire burns the body and is extremely dangerous. Many talented people have turned to ashes at this stage. Gu Yunsha's expression was really ugly. I don't believe he can succeed. Chapter 5. There are so many books, I can't finish them all in my lifetime. Gu Chunsha sat on the ground and flipped through a tattered book. He was surrounded by many halls, each with books piled up like a mountain. This was where the books of the world were stored for compiling the heavenly talisman canon. He was punished to organize books for 3 days. The emperor flaunted his political and military achievements, firstly to expand his territory, and secondly to show off his military achievements. The second was the compilation of books, and that was the administration of literature. In the 4th year of the heavenly talisman, countless learned scholars were gathered to collect books from all over the world to compile a canon. In the past 10 years, carts of books were transported from all over the country to the capital, filling up the palace. Of course, the valuable martial arts and Taoist books had been filtered out and stored in a secret place of the royal family. The rest were miscellaneous books. Because they were leftovers, the books were neglected and gradually became infested. Although he was punished to organize books for 3 days, a few young eunuchs were wandering around and didn't care about him. He was reading casually. This book was the notes of an old man from the previous dynasty, introducing cultivation and martial arts. Cultivation is divided into the mortal realm and the Tao realm. The 4th tier of the mortal realm is the beginning, entering the next level, reaching the acme of perfection, and reaching the peak. Above that is entering the Tao through martial arts, stepping into the Tao realm. There are 36 transformations. The first transformation is eating qi and abstaining from eating food, absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. The second transformation is 9 bulls and 2 tigers. The body has the strength of 9 bulls and 2 tigers. The third transformation is copper skin and iron bones. The body is impervious to swords and spears. The fourth transformation is gold devouring stone. The internal organs are as strong as a furnace. The body can even melt metal and stone. The fifth transformation is 100 apertures gathering spirit. The human body has 108 apertures, very hidden, and chi can't reach them. If one can cultivate to the state of having 100 apertures filled with spiritual chi, the entire person will be reborn. The sixth transformation is refining chi into energy. After the spiritual chi gathers in the 100 apertures, the spiritual chi will circulate endlessly in the body, gradually growing to the limit. The body can spew out, turning into energy, and use the 100 steps divine fist to crush people. The so-called energy, also known as true chi, is the meaning of reality. The seventh transformation is leaving the ground to soar. The true chi will grow stronger and surround the body, allowing one to stand in the air and temporarily fly. The 8 transformations, samadhi, true fire. The true chi in the entire body surges, producing true fire in the inner mansion. From the inside out, it burns inch by inch, smelting the body. The 9 transformations, glass jade body. After refining one's body with true fire and passing the final stage, one's entire body would become as translucent as glass. One would not be sick or injured, and one could live for 300 to 500 years without dying. As a person's cultivation deepened, they would develop all sorts of abilities. The ancient sages recorded these changes in cultivation and formed the 36 transformations. At the end of the 36 transformations, one can even regrow severed limbs, be reborn from a single drop of blood, immortal body, primordial spirit projection, reincarnation in a corpse, size manipulation, creation from the void, and creation of heavenly grottos. Those are the true abilities of immortals. After reading the notebook, he closed it and said in a low voice, "The changes in the state of Tao are truly marvelous. It's a pity that my martial arts are mediocre, and I'm only at the beginner level. Forget it, there's no point in talking about these clichés." Throwing down his notes, he began to look for a book to read. There were many records of the Tao realm's 36 transformations since ancient times, but only a few people managed to cultivate it. He looked left and right, looking for a book everywhere. Suddenly, crash! A pile of books fell to the ground, covering him in dust and blinding his eyes. "When I'm unlucky, I'll choke to death even when drinking cold water." He hurriedly tidied up the broken book from the pile of dust. Suddenly, he felt something strange with his hand. "What material is this scroll made of? It's not silk, it's not hemp, and it's not leather either?" He took out a yellowed scroll from the corner. He could not see the name of the scroll, and it was full of small holes that were eaten by insects. The words on it were very small, like a mosquito. "What is the Son of Heaven? Only those who have mastered a certain school of knowledge can be called a scholar, like the 100 schools of ancient scholars. As for the Son of Heaven, he is the one who has mastered the heavenly Tao. He holds the power of heaven in his hands and speaks the law of heaven. He can create and destroy with a single thought, and all laws follow his heart. He can confer titles to the gods. This is the Son of Heaven. Today's emperor, who established his country through conspiracies and killing, governs mere mortals. Isn't it ridiculous to call himself the Son of Heaven? So this is the meaning of the Son of Heaven." Gu Chernshaw read 2 sentences of this unknown scroll and found it interesting. The Son of Heaven is the incarnation of the heavenly Tao. It is indeed not something that the Emperor of the mortal world can compare to. The Emperor of the mortal world cannot be called the Son of Heaven at all. The scholar is the one who has mastered a lot of knowledge, or even the founder of knowledge. For example, the legalist patriarch was called the legalist, and the Confucian patriarch was the Confucian. That day, the Taoist ancestor was the Son of Heaven. The strongest thing about the Son of Heaven is that he can confer titles to the gods. In ancient times there were many true gods who were conferred titles by the ancient Son of Heaven, and they still enjoy incense to this day. As he thought about it, he continued to read. In ancient times, there was the heavenly sacrificial talisman. It was ordered by the heavens, and it was the condensation of the essence of the heavenly Tao. It gave all living beings a chance to become the Son of Heaven. As long as one could obtain the heavenly sacrificial talisman and communicate with the heavens, one could gradually cultivate and understand the heavenly Tao. When Gu Qinsha read this, he closed the broken scroll. I know about the heavenly sacrificial talisman. Whoever obtained it would become the Son of Heaven. Later, the talisman was lost, and the emperor replaced it with a jade seal. The 4 words on the jade seal, ordered by the heavens, are the words on the heavenly sacrificial talisman. When an emperor offered a sacrifice to the heavens, the opening words were, "Subject so-and-so has received the heavenly sacrificial talisman to govern the country," but since ancient times, this talisman had disappeared. The past emperors had not actually been conferred titles by the heavenly sacrificial talisman, but had relied on force and power to stabilize the country. The current emperor of the Great Yong dynasty, Gu Taxian, had the era title Heavenly Talisman, which meant that he had to find the heavenly sacrificial talisman, so that he could legitimately become the Son of Heaven. I'll take this book back to read. He patted the dust off his body, put the book in his pocket, and turned to return to the courtyard. He was only 14 years old, and could only live in a remote courtyard beside the palace. And when he became an adult at the age of 15, he would be able to start a family and establish a career. At the same time, he would be conferred a title of nobility, and receive a fixed amount of money and rations. At that time, his life would be better. Of course, with his status, it was impossible for him to be conferred the title of prince or duke. It would already be good if he could be conferred the title of general. The titles of nobility in the imperial court were divided into prince, duke, duke Zhengua, Duke Fu, General Zhengua, General Fu, General Fenghua, and General Fengyan. Only princes who were especially favored could be conferred the title of prince at birth. Ordinary princes were conferred the title of prince, duke, Duke Zhengua, Duke Fu, General Zhengua, General Fengyan. His small courtyard was at the northernmost edge of the palace. There were only 2 or 3 rooms, and they were empty. There were no palace maids or eunuchs to serve him. He was not favored, and his monthly allowance was often deducted. He did not have the support of his mother's family. He was an unlucky fellow. Who would follow him? He was not like some princes whose mother's family was rich enough to rival a country. They were generous, cultivated their influence, and dominated the palace. The courtyard was also very messy. Weeds were everywhere, burrowing out of the cracks in the stone slabs and swaying in the wind. There were also sparrows and other birds looking for grass seeds to eat. At night, foxes and badgers appeared, and snakes and insects crawled about. The northern side of the palace was sparsely populated, connected to many forests and lakes. It was gloomy during the day and even more ghostly at night. Even the boldest guards felt their hearts palpitate. Gu Qinsha did not care. It was safer to hide here and avoid trouble. As soon as he entered the courtyard, a young eunuch walked towards him. He was holding a large rooster in his hands and was crowing loudly. When he saw Pei Ziyun, he bowed down. 19th Master, we have chicken to eat today. The catering department bought a lot of fresh vegetables today. After much persuasion, they finally gave us a chicken. Gu Qinsha could not bring himself to be happy. He sighed, "Little adopted son, you have followed me for so long, and have been loyal and devoted. I have not given you any benefits, and yet you are being bullied everywhere." This little adopted son was the only eunuch who was willing to follow him for many years. "Master, please don't say that. I am just a useless dog. You are the only one who treats me like a human. How would I dare to be disloyal?" The little adopted son hurriedly knelt down, "Master, this courtyard is too desolate. Do you want to pull out the grass? Make it clean and tidy, and it will be more comfortable to live here. As the saying goes, if you don't sweep a house, how can you sweep the world? I want this place to be desolate, and let people think that I am decadent. That way I will have less to worry about." Gu Chensha was well versed in the art of concealment. "Get up. I understand." The little adopted son stood up. Suddenly, his hand slipped, and the large rooster suddenly flew towards Gu Chensha. Cluck, cluck, cluck. The chicken claw viciously scratched his face. Gu Chensha panicked and used his hands to block the attack. The claws were dripping with blood, and the flesh on his hands was torn off. Shwa! He pulled out a dagger from his sleeves and used the total annihilation technique to cut the neck of the large rooster. His martial arts skills were average, but he had trained hard and had the strength to truss a chicken. The large rooster's neck was cut open, and its blood splattered all over his body. "I deserve to die, I deserve to die." The little adopted son was scared out of his wits. "Get up, this is nothing." Gu Chensha did not mind. "Cook the large rooster. I will return to my room to bandage my wounds and change my clothes." The blood of the rooster was mixed with fresh blood, and his body was truly unpresentable. He returned to his room and took off his clothes. Plop! The book fell to the ground. It was also stained with blood, and there was a faint flash of light. Gu Chensha bent down to pick it up. Just as his hand touched the book, purring, the book had already been burnt to ashes, and a green scroll appeared. This scroll was not made of gold or iron, nor was it made of silk or hemp. There were 4 words on it, and it looked like a flying bird. Ancient bird language? Gu Chensha recognized it. This was the most mysterious language in ancient times. Birds could fly, and they could communicate with the heavens. The words were in the shape of a bird, and it was in accordance with the will of the heavens. Receiving the mandate of heaven. This is the heavenly sacrifice talisman. He stuttered, and he could not believe his eyes. Because the 4 words on the scroll were, "Receiving the mandate of heaven." Who would have thought that the thing that the previous emperors had been pursuing was actually hidden in this broken book? With this talisman, one could become the son of heaven if they trained hard. Without this talisman, no matter how much power they had, no matter how vast their territory was, they would still be an emperor, and not the son of heaven. The emperor was the emperor, and the son of heaven was the son of heaven. This was because emperors could only order mortals, but the son of heaven had the talisman and could confer titles to the gods. The son of heaven could confer gods. Only the gods who held this talisman and conferred titles were true gods. Other than that, they were all fake gods. Even now, one of the 10 great achievements of the heavenly talisman, the Arch, abolish worship to confer gods, was only to clean up those evil gods and devils who had not been conferred titles by the ancient Son of Heaven. He did not have the heavenly talisman. The true power of the Son of Heaven was not to manage mortals, but to confer titles to the gods. Otherwise, how could he be called the Son of Heaven? Gu Chensha kept the talisman, and he calmed down from his initial excitement. He let out a long sigh. The country's divine artifact belongs to the virtuous. There is no need for the heavenly talisman. Just as he was putting it away, the image of a rooster suddenly appeared on the talisman, and it flowed and was absorbed. Buzz buzz. After the talisman absorbed the rooster's image, a strange warmth flowed through the air and entered Gu Chensha's body. He could not help but moan, and he felt as if he had gained the strength of a rooster. The ancient historical records are true. The ancient emperors, by dripping their blood on the talisman and offering it to the heavens, they could obtain the power of that living being? He came to a sudden realization. When he killed the rooster, its blood stained the tattered book, and the rooster scratched itself to draw blood as well. Together, they formed a small sacrificial talisman. This was equivalent to Gu Chensha offering to the heavens, and he naturally received a gift from the heavens. The heavenly talisman was thus activated. Gu Chernsha was a prince, and he had followed the emperor to worship the heavens many times, but he did not see any strange phenomena. The heavens did not give the emperor anything either, and this was the reason why there was no heavenly talisman. Without this talisman, no one could communicate with the heavens. After obtaining the legendary heavenly talisman, Gu Chernsha did not have any intention of becoming the emperor. With his current strength, fighting for the throne was undoubtedly suicide. Moreover, he did not have any interest in the throne, and he was still in the stage of survival. After all, Gu Chernsha was a prince. Although he had been pretending to be crazy, he had actually been studying and practicing martial arts in secret. His martial arts couldn't improve due to the limited resources, but he did study a lot. As a prince, I was supposed to have the medicinal pills and supplements for my cultivation, but they were all embezzled. Now I've only just begun to learn martial arts. With this heaven-offering talisman, I can imitate the ancient heavenly sons, killing wild beasts as sacrifices to the heavens, praying for the people, and cultivating a godly skill. However, they could not worship the heavens in the imperial palace. Otherwise, if they were accused of practicing witchcraft, they would definitely be sentenced to death. Looks like I can only go to Nanshan to hunt. Witchcraft was the most taboo in the imperial palace. Gu Chernsha could not be allowed to be blackmailed. He had never thought of offering the heaven's sacrificial talisman. If he offered it up, it would definitely cause a stir in the court and would also establish an unrivaled merit. He would definitely be conferred the title of prince, but what use would that be? Without strength, the title of Grand Prince could be taken away at any time. If you were framed and sentenced to death with just a word, how could you resist? It was even possible that he would be accused of hiding a divine artifact and conspiring against the law in the future. Chapter 6. Ferocious wolf howls came from the dense forest. A giant gray wolf fell into a trap and was hung up by a net. Gu Chernsha stabbed the giant wolf's throat with a dagger. Blood spurted out and fell on the green heaven's sacrificial talisman. He then cut his finger and the blood dripped down. The shadow of a gray wolf appeared on the surface of the talisman and was absorbed into the green light. Deep in the talisman, a powerful force was injected into his body. The sacrifice required the blood of living beings and oneself. This was recorded in many ancient history books. This way, the heavens could determine who the power of the sacrifice belonged to. Rip! His clothes instantly burst. Howl, 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 the Gu Chernsha let out a wolf-like howl, and the muscles on his body swelled and twisted like pythons that had come to life. Out of nowhere, his whole body grew a few times larger, and his originally somewhat thin body became tall and sturdy. The strength of a wolf was much stronger than the strength of a chicken. An ordinary strong man might not be able to defeat an adult giant wolf. This was Nanshan, the hunting ground of the royal family. The royal family had designated hundreds of miles of land as a hunting ground. There were countless beasts in it. Gu Chernsha rarely came here because he was afraid that he would be killed and there would be no evidence. But after obtaining the heaven's sacrificial talisman, he needed sacrifices to increase his strength. He could not practice witchcraft in the palace. In ancient times, beasts ran rampant and devoured humans. The ancient emperor led the people to hunt beasts and offer sacrifices to the heavens. He prayed for the blessings of the people and finally, the human race became strong. Gu Chernsha naturally followed the example of the ancient emperor. He killed beasts to offer sacrifices to the heavens. He was well-read and knew that only virtuous people could possess treasures and artifacts. If one was not virtuous enough, the treasures would bring disaster. For example, if the emperor was virtuous enough, the world would be at peace. If the emperor was perverse, the world would be in chaos and the emperor would become a subjugated country. He did not know what luck he had to obtain the heaven sacrificial talisman. But he was not arrogant enough to possess such an artifact. This talisman was ordered by the heavens to control the four directions. Finally, it operated the heavenly Tao and conferred the title of gods. How could it be a joke? Black blood was forced out of his pores. His flesh and blood were like iron slag that had been twisted and forged into steel. The excess fat and the toxins that had accumulated in his body were all expelled from his body. After a full hour, he finally recovered. His entire body was full of vigor and vitality. He clenched his fists slightly, and the bones in his body crackled. He took a step forward, and the ground sank slightly. He struck out with his palm. Ka-cha! The small tree, which was as thick as a bowl, was actually broken. His martial arts had already reached the second layer of the mortal realm. He could be called a warrior. The so-called scholar referred to scholar officials, which meant that they were superior to the common people. After becoming a warrior, according to the rules set by the emperor, the prince could be conferred the title of Zhenghua General. This was a rule set down by the emperor. Any prince who achieved success in martial arts could also be conferred a title. If a prince reached the peak of the fourth level of the mortal realm and made a great contribution, he could be conferred the title of a duke. There was nothing special about the beginner of the first level of the mortal realm. He was just a martial artist. At the second level, one could be called a samurai. Those who had reached the third level of perfection could be called a master, and those who had reached the fourth level of reached the peak could be called a grandmaster. It actually has the effect of cleansing one's body. He looked at his hands with joy. The palace has precious marrow cleansing pills that can improve one's physique, but how can I get a reward? Now it seems that the power of the sacrifice is many times better than the marrow cleansing pill. After taking the marrow cleansing pill, one would have abdominal pain and diarrhea for 3 days. After that, one would need to take ginseng, antler, and other great tonics to recuperate for 3 months. Only then would one's body slowly become stronger. How could the effect be immediate? But after thinking about it, he understood that it was the power of the heavens. Although the marrow cleansing pill was precious, how could it compare to the power of the heavens? With my current strength, I can hunt bears. Bears were the best sacrificial offerings in the ancient times. The ancient and famous Yuxiong tribe was recorded in the history book. Sacrificing bears to the heavens would yield great reward. Gu Qinsha was familiar with the history books and recalled the sacrificial offerings of the ancient tribe. He decided to hunt bears. In the past, his martial arts skills were mediocre, and it was inevitable that he would be ambushed when hunting alone. But now that he had reached the next level, he became bolder. The power of a wolf in his body was indeed extraordinary. His movements were fast and fierce, and he could use some movement skills that he couldn't use in the past. Roar. After traveling for an hour, his strength was still not exhausted. If it was in the past, he would be panting. A loud roar came from the front, and he immediately hid in the bushes. In the forest there were 2 wild beasts fighting. One was a bear, and the other was a tiger. My luck is really good. I actually encountered such a thing? He was overjoyed. Recently, his luck was really good. Everything went smoothly. Now that his strength had increased, it was dangerous to deal with the violent bear. If the tiger and the bear fought each other and got injured, he could take advantage of them. Wouldn't that be great? As expected, the bear and the tiger were covered in wounds and their strength was exhausted. The fierce tiger struggled to get up and left step by step, while the bear was panting heavily and couldn't move. Good chance. Gu Qinsha rushed out and aimed at the violent bear. His dagger slashed at its throat. But the violent bear didn't know where it got its strength from, but it stretched out its paw like a martial arts expert. It ruthlessly slapped Chu Feng's shoulder and knocked him to the ground. Gu Qinsha saw stars and almost fainted. Fortunately, he had just shaved his hair and cleansed his marrow, and his physique was greatly improved. He jumped up with a carp jump and stabbed out with his dagger, 100 steps piercing willow. The dagger was like an arrow. Pooh! The dagger pierced into the violent bear's eye. The violent bear fell to the ground. Gu Qinsha immediately took out the heavenly sacrifice decree, and sacrificed the bear's soul. The sacrifice had to be slaughtered on the spot, and the soul could be sacrificed to the heavens through the heavenly sacrifice decree. If it was too long, the soul would be destroyed, and it would be meaningless. The moment he sacrificed the violent bear, Gu Qinsha's body was torn apart. His flesh was twisted by a huge force. It was as if he had been put into a meat grinder. He didn't know how long it took for him to calm down. When he woke up, the sky was already dark. He quickly checked his body. Fortunately, all the wounds had disappeared. His skin was smooth and glossy like porcelain. It felt like a snake had swallowed an entire cow. He didn't need to eat for the entire winter. Based on his intuition, he knew that he couldn't sacrifice anymore. Otherwise, his body would explode. The most important thing now was to go back and train hard. He needed to digest his strength and raise his martial arts level before he could come again. Sacrificing was a forceful infusion of strength. Gu Qinsha's body had reached its limit, so he couldn't inject any more. I have the strength of a chicken, wolf, and bear in my body now. In terms of physique, I don't lose to a prince who has been taking nourishing pills for many years. Even my bones and blood are much purer. No matter how precious the medicine is, there will still be poison left in my body. But the power of the heavens will not have any impurities. As long as I go back and train hard, I will be able to break through quickly. Gu Qinsha thought to himself. With a strong physique, training in martial arts would come naturally. Bang! 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 His body jumped and punched out consecutively. When he hit the trees, they exploded and splinters flew everywhere. He had the agility of a wolf and the calmness of a bear. He was like a wild beast, rampaging around. The strength of a bear and wolf is indeed not to be underestimated. Gu Qinsha looked at his hands. He knew that in a day, he had surpassed 10 years of training for others. The sky was dark and the palace gates were locked. He couldn't go back, but it was not appropriate to stay in the mountains. Not to mention other beasts, even snakes, insects, rats, and ants couldn't stand it. Now that his strength had increased, he couldn't do anything to the poisonous insects in the forest. As for the prince's hunting, it wasn't a crime to not return at night. The emperor encouraged the princes to practice martial arts and hunt. Every year there would be a test, and the outstanding princes would be rewarded. He left the mountains at night and didn't enter the city. He rested at an inn outside the city. He took a bath and changed his clothes. Looking at himself in the bronze mirror, he realized that his temperament had changed. His eyes were shining, his forehead was crystal clear, his shoulders were broad, and his face was steady. This wasn't a good thing. Everyone in the palace was smart. How could they not see the change in his temperament? Fortunately, he had been pretending to be crazy for many years and had some skills. After some practice, he could also pretend to be stupid and wretched. After a busy day, he felt comfortable and full of energy. He didn't feel tired at all. Lying on the bed, his eyes shone brightly. I remember that in many books, the ancient emperors sacrificed to the heavens not only to gain strength. For example, there was an ancient emperor who fought with the devil and killed 9,000 demons. A divine sword actually fell from the heavens. Gu Qinsha thought, looks like I have to look for various sacrificial techniques from the history books. The power of the heavens created everything. The entire world, the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, the mountains, and the rivers were all created by this inconceivable divine power. What else was impossible? Etiquette and sacrificial rituals were also a subject of study for the princes. The important things of the country were sacrificial rituals and rites. Gu Qinsha had learned about all kinds of sacrificial rituals in the ancient times. Using sacrificial rituals to gain strength was just the beginning. If one mastered the appropriate sacrificial techniques, everything would come true. There were records in the history books that people sacrificed to ghosts and gods to gain gold and silver. There were even people who sacrificed to demons to gain beauties. There were all kinds of strange things. Even the obscene sacrificial rituals were so magical, what more the sacrificial rituals to the heavens. Obscene sacrificial rituals usually didn't have a good ending. They were controlled by the devil. In history, there was almost no one who used witchcraft as a sacrificial ritual. All of them had a tragic ending. Proper sacrificial rituals didn't have those drawbacks. They were upright and righteous. They killed beasts to appease the people and imitated the morals of the ancient emperors. As for obscene sacrificial rituals, they used cruel methods such as virgin boys and girls. Next were the 3 animals and 6 animals. But Gu Chernsha didn't think it was advisable. The 3 animals and 6 animals had been domesticated by humans for many years and had contributed greatly. How could they bear to sacrifice them? For example, cows worked hard and plowed the field. When they died, their meat was eaten. If they were to be sacrificed and their souls were used as a trade, what difference was there between them and demons? As for the evil nature of beasts, it was different to devour humans. Benevolence, righteousness, etiquette, and law are all about order. What is order? Good for good, evil for evil. Kindness is rewarded and evil is punished. The law is strict. Gu Chernsha thought about sacrificial rituals and gained a lot of insight. It was as if his soul had become lively. This kind of enlightenment was also beneficial to his martial arts. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. Gu Chernsha practiced boxing in the forest. Black Tiger Steel's heart. His fists were like the wind. He used the most ordinary moves. After repeated practice, his mind became ethereal and he gradually became able to turn the ordinary into the magical. Black Tiger Steel's heart was the most simple move, but it also contained many variations. The key was the word dig. There were dig, real dig, horizontal dig, vertical dig, up dig, down dig, yin dig, and yang dig. When using this move, one could control the weight and weight of the move freely. Fake and real, and the flow of yin and yang. This was the realm of perfection. One could also be called a martial arts master. Gu Chernsha was just a beginner. He had become a martial artist after obtaining the strength of a bear and wolf. After 3 months of hard training, he had finally familiarized himself with the power. He made continuous improvements and vaguely stepped into the 3rd level of the mortal realm, perfection, becoming a martial arts master. Chapter 7. In the past 3 months, other than pretending to be a fool, Gu Chernsha spent his time practicing martial arts and studying the heavenly sacrificial decree. At the same time, he read a lot of ancient documents. The records in the history books are quite interesting. In ancient times, the great emperor built an altar with 5-colored soil and placed more than 10 kinds of herbs in it. He killed tigers and wolves as sacrifices to the heavens to obtain the tiger-wolf elixir. The soldiers who consumed the elixir would all become extremely powerful. Also, I can put a coin into a copper basin and use the blood soul of the green dragon as a sacrifice. The basin will be filled with the same coin. Or, I can set up a small gung metal formation and put a sword in it to kill the white tiger. The sword will cut through iron like mud. I wonder if it will work? After practicing martial arts, Gu Chernsha lay on his bed and read many history books. There were official history books and unofficial history books. In the history books there were chapters on etiquette. If there was etiquette, there would be sacrifices. Other than that, there was also the etiquette department in the Heavenly Talisman ceremony. The Heavenly Talisman ceremony included everything, including ancient and modern books. It could be said to be the number 1 book in history, but the compilation had not even reached 1/10 of it. He wanted to find records about the heavenly sacrificial decree and how to use it. Indeed, there were many records about the heavenly sacrificial decree in the ancient history book. But it was hard to distinguish the real from the fake. He needed to keep experimenting. Also, the Tao of sacrifice was not that simple. He needed to understand yin and yang, the 5 elements, the reversal of the formation, and the right time. In the past 3 months, I have almost digested the power. It seems that I can perform another sacrifice to increase my power. This time, I will go hunting for tigers and test the other things I can get from the sacrifice. It was a miracle for him to go from first glimpse to transcendent in just 3 months. Even if he was a favored prince with all kinds of elixirs and the best training manuals, he still needed 10 years of hard work. How could a martial arts master be a child's play? He packed his luggage and was about to go hunting again. These days, he had digested the power of the bear wolf. He could go one step further and break through to the Grandmaster realm. Hall of diligent government in the palace. A few ministers stood respectfully, and eunuchs wearing soft cloth-soled shoes waited outside, making no sound. Inside the hall, the copper crane's mouth emitted an orchid fragrance. It was not strong, but faintly discernible. Anyone who smelled it would feel 100 times more refreshed. The smoke rose to the top of the hall and actually formed the shape of a dragon and a tiger. This was the most precious dragon-tiger divine incense. Rumor had it that it was refined from the fossilization of an ancient flood dragon's gallbladder mixed with the gallbladder of a mutated golden tiger and musk deer. When it was ignited, an ordinary person only needed to take a whiff of it to be able to cure diseases, prolong life, awaken one's mind, and become extraordinarily intelligent. There was only one person in the world who could use this item, and that was the heavenly talisman emperor Gu Taxian. Even if others had this incense, they would not dare to use it. It was a prohibited item, and if they were found to be disrespectful, they would be executed. Gu Taxian did not wear a dragon robe. He was dressed casually in a green silk robe, and his hair was tied up with a jade crown. He was tall and muscular, giving people the feeling that he could support the sky. However, he did not look stern, but kind and friendly. He did not look like an emperor, but more like a teacher who taught the world. Your Majesty, the evil worship among the people has been cleaned up, and the gods that were conferred by the ancient emperor have been established. However, there are still some ambitious people who are secretly worshipping the evil gods and devils. If we are not careful, they will come back to life. A minister reported, "We are stupid, and there is no way to get rid of them once and for all." The minister who reported the report was a middle-aged man. He had a ferocious look, and a pair of eagle eyes that were as sharp as knives. It showed that he was a decisive person, and he was a very powerful person. One look and anyone could tell that he was not a scholar, but the commander of the army. Don't blame yourself, Marquis Bichia. The evil worship is not something that can be completely banned in history. Although I have the ambition to cleanse the world of evil and to keep the world clean, it is not something that can be achieved in a day. Gu Taxian comforted the minister while reading the report. He had a habit of speaking, and he did not like to address himself as I, but I. Other than that, he did not use the ancient language when reading the report. He only used the common language, and it was simple and clear. The ministers were used to this way of doing things. This emperor was also a legend. He was an illegitimate son who lived among the people, and he did not have the right to be the emperor. However, he suddenly rose to power and succeeded in taking over the throne. It was a heaven-defying feat, and it was as difficult as changing a dynasty. Because of this, the imperial court had to carry out a huge purge. After he ascended to the throne, there were a few big cases. Tens of thousands of people were executed and hundreds of thousands of people were exiled. Cleansing the evil worship is the most important part of governing a country. In the past, it was always the evil spirits who took advantage of the natural disasters to bewitch the people and bring harm to the world. If it was just the starving people rebelling, it would be easy to suppress and pacify them. But if there were evil spirits spreading their religion among the starving people, and they tried to overthrow the imperial court with their evil theories, the country would be in danger. Gu Taxian replied to an unimportant memorial with 3 words, "Got it." Then, he flipped through another one. "Your Majesty is wise." Lord Baixie was the Minister of Military Affairs, and he was in charge of the Ministry of Punishments. He was also the commander of the Blood Iron Guards, and he was responsible for wiping out all the bandits and evil cult. He could even arrest the officials who broke the law, and he was the sharpest knife in the imperial court. He said, "Also, I have something to report. Recently, there are some evil spirits from the Xian dynasty moving around in the Jianghu. I have been investigating them, but I have not been able to catch them. This is my fault." Evil spirits from the Xian dynasty? Gu Taxian put down the pen in his hand, but he was not moved. He said, "This is expected. When the Xian dynasty was wiped out, the royal bloodline was wiped out, but there were still a few powerful people who were loyal to the royal family. For example, the Grand Preceptor Wen Hong was not killed. But the world is now peaceful, and the people are looking for peace. Hundreds of countries have been wiped out, and a few evil spirits can't do anything." Yes. Lord Baixie's report was done, so he stood aside and let the other ministers report. "Duke of Yuan, you go first," Gu Taxian said. The Duke of Yuan, Lu Chongshao, was wearing a court robe. His eyes were like stars and his forehead was bright. He did not have the murderous aura of Lord Baixie. Instead, he had the aura of a prime minister. "Actually, I have a private matter to report today." Lu Chongshao hesitated, "but this is also a national matter. Last time, the Empress said that my daughter is already an adult, and she hopes that the 7th prince and my daughter can, this matter." Gu Taxian thought, "This is a private matter, but it involves my son, so it is also a national matter. Baiwei is very intelligent, and she has the pure lady bloodline. Her future is limitless, and the country will need her in the future. I have already announced that all the women in the world can learn martial arts, and she can be a role model. Gao Ling, come in." A eunuch came in silently and kneeled on the floor. He was like a ghost, and he did not look like a human, but like a ghost. He was the chief steward of the 6 palaces, Gao Ling, the personal eunuch of the heavenly talisman emperor. "Pass down the order. Reward Lu Baiwei with 3 essence pills, a set of Qi ice armor, and a fire sword." Gu Taxian ordered. Plop. Lu Chongshao quickly kneeled down. "Your Majesty, please take back your order. My daughter cannot accept such a great reward." The essence pills were made by the royal alchemists using precious herbs and pure energy. It took them 10 years to make one batch, and every single pill was precious. Even the princes could not get their hands on them. As for the Qi ice armor, it was said that it was made from the scales of the Qi dragon that lived in the North Sea. The fire sword was made from a special metal with fire properties. With this sword, it could cut through any ordinary weapon. The sword was even more scorching, and it would burn the moment it came into contact with it. In a fight, the enemy would turn into ashes within 2 to 3 moves. Even a martial arts master would find it difficult to control the fire sword. However, after wearing the Qi ice armor, one could unleash its full power. When the reward was announced, even the other officials were shocked. They felt that it was too much. Even the princes who had contributed greatly to the country would not receive such a reward. "How can I take back my reward?" Gu Taxian smiled. "Then I thank you on behalf of my daughter, Your Majesty." Lu Chongshao kowtowed again. "That's good. You mentioned marriage just now. What is Baiwei's opinion?" Gu Taxian stood up. "It is the order of the parents and the words of the matchmaker. How can a girl make her own decision about marriage?" Lu Chongshao prostrated on the floor. "I have changed the world and swept away the decadent customs. Making one's own decision about marriage is one of them. Gu Taxian continued to stroll. I have said that I will let Bai Yue make her own decision. Whichever of my sons she likes, they can get to know each other first. If they like each other, I will fulfill her wish. What do you think? Your Majesty. When all the officials heard the word, Your Majesty, they immediately knelt down. They knew that the emperor was about to make an important decision because Gu Taxian usually addressed himself as I. When he addressed himself as Your Majesty, it meant that he had made a decision that could not be changed. Your Majesty, you are the emperor of all times. If Bai Yue knows about this, he will definitely be grateful and serve the court, Lu Chongshao said loudly. Oh yes, my 19th prince is called Gu Chunxia, right? Gu Taxian spoke slowly. He is now 14 years old and about to become an adult. Your Lu family destroyed the dynasty and obtained the book of the Great Spirit God. Give it to me first. Now, take it out from the secret library and let Bai Yue give it to the 19th prince to cultivate. The two of them can get to know each other. What? Lu Chongshao thought that he had heard it wrong. He never expected that the emperor would make such a decision. Although it was get to know each other, it was no less than a marriage. When Gu Chunxia provided disaster relief, the joke that the people did not eat meat because they had no food to eat had spread throughout the court. But he did not dare to refute the decision of the great emperor of Heavenly Talisman. Although the Lu family was known as the Lu half of the court, and had great power in the court if he disobeyed, the emperor could crush his family into powder with just one word. Your subject understands, thank you. Lu Chongshao was trembling with fear. He was majestic and unfathomable in front of everyone. He held great power and could kill thousands of people with just one word. But in front of the emperor, he was still a servant. What does the emperor mean? He thought quickly. Why did he allow Bai Yue and the 19th prince to get to know each other? His mind was full of thoughts as he tried to figure out the emperor's intention. Gu Taxian walked and ignored Lu Chongshao. He asked another official, Prime Minister, how is the implementation of the ban on gold and silver and the issuance of paper money going? The Prime Minister was also an important official in the court, but he was an old man. His face was like the skin of a walnut, but his eyes were bright and full of life. The other officials did not dare to breathe in front of the great emperor of Heavenly Talisman, but he was calm. The implementation is going well. All the major businesses in the country have agreed to exchange their gold and silver for the paper money. Both he and Lu Chongshao were prime ministers, but one was a scholar and the other a military officer. I'm afraid the situation is not so optimistic. Gu Taxian was expressionless. Those century-old and millennium-old families are used to hiding their gold and silver. They don't believe in the paper money of the court, thinking that it is useless. It seems that they will only wake up to the reality that the world now is not the same as before. Boom. Chapter 8. Crack. The sturdy rosewood table was crushed by her hand. Her hand was soft and supple, but it had a terrifying destructive power. How could this be? Lu Baiyue's face was filled with killing intent. If the emperor wants the subject to die, the subject has to die. Lu Chongshao was helpless. This is the emperor's wish. Who can oppose it? The 19th prince is an idiot. How can my sister be close to him? What will the other princes think if this gets out? A young man in his 20s was also furious. He was Lu Baiyue's elder brother, Lu Zhaixing. He was one of the best of the younger generation in the imperial court. He had made great contributions to the imperial court and was also a baron. Yes, master. Should I go to the palace and beg the empress? The empress has always disliked Gu Chunxia. She has always wanted Bai Yue to marry the 7th prince. You should know that the 7th prince is the direct descendant of the empress and has the highest chance of inheriting the throne. A noblewoman cried with her daughter. She was the first wife of the Yuan kingdom and also Lu Baiyue's mother. She often went to the palace and chatted with the concubines in the imperial harem. She had many contacts in the palace. It's useless. This is the emperor's will. He can't change his words. Lu Chongxiao shook his head. The emperor now has absolute power and authority. If you do this, you will be defying his orders. Our Lu family has attracted a lot of attention in the imperial court. Many families are unhappy with us. If we attack, we will be exterminated. Being with the emperor is like being with a tiger. Then what should we do? The noblewoman's eyes turned vicious. Otherwise, Baiyue will secretly plot something and let the other princes kill him? Fool! Lu Chongxiao scolded. What kind of person is the emperor? There is nothing in the world that can hide from him. Do you think he doesn't know about your little tricks? How many years have I been with the emperor? How many princes, ministers and generals have lost the emperor's favor and met with misfortune? Even if the 19th prince is not favored, he is still a prince. If he dares to plot against us, even if it is flawless and there is no evidence, as long as His Majesty has this not in his heart, our Lu family will face imminent disaster. What exactly does the emperor mean? Lu Zhaixing gritted his teeth. The reward is so great, but he let my sister get close to that fool. I can't figure it out. Actually, things aren't as bad as we thought. Lu Baiyue calmed down. I think the emperor has two intentions. Our Lu family is already half the court. If I marry a favored prince, it will break the balance among the princes and get close to the 7th prince. In the future, I will become the empress and the Lu family will become relatives of the emperor. Wouldn't it be harder to control them? Asking me to get close to that brat is to restrict our Lu family. What is the meaning of the second layer? Lu Zhaixing asked. Of course he wants us to keep an eye on that brat. He has the bloodline of the Xian dynasty. To the old and young of the Xian dynasty, he is a valuable chess piece. Lu Baiyue analyzed. The Great Spirit God technique is a technique of the Xian dynasty's royal family, and the Xian dynasty's royal family has the bloodline of the ancient, the Great Spirit God. If the Xian dynasty's royal family cultivates this bloodline, there is a small chance that they will awaken the giant spirit bloodline. They will be extremely powerful and have many miracles. The emperor wants to let that brat cultivate it and see how his bloodline is. How can it be so easy to awaken the bloodline of the Great Spirit God? The Xian dynasty's royal family has not had anyone who awakens the bloodline of the Great Spirit God in 100 years. Lu Zhaixing shook his head. If there is someone who awakens the bloodline of the Great Spirit God, our great Yonko may not be able to destroy the Xian dynasty. You should know that the ancient, the Great Spirit God, is a true God conferred by the ancient emperor. Even the emperor's current cultivation cannot be abolished unless he obtains the legendary heavenly sacrificial decree. I hope that His Majesty can obtain the heavenly sacrificial talisman and become a true son of heaven, accomplishing an unprecedented hegemony. That way we, as subjects, might be conferred the title of God, becoming immortal. Lu Chongxiao sat steadily. So, we must follow the emperor's footsteps closely. We will do whatever the emperor says. This matter still needs to be discussed carefully. If we get close to that brat, it will cause the other princes to isolate our Lu family. Although this is the emperor's decree, we may be attacked by vile people and spread rumors. Lu Zhaixing had a lot of concerns. We can't ignore the empress' wishes. The 7th prince has been interested in you for a long time. If he ascends the throne in the future, our Lu family will be in big trouble. Ascending the throne? Lu Baiyue turned and asked. Father, you have followed the emperor for almost 20 years. When he was still a commoner, you have been following him. You can say that you know a lot about him. Do you know what the emperor's cultivation level is now? The emperor's cultivation level is unfathomable. I am afraid he can reverse life and death. Lu Chongxiao's expression was solemn. That's right. We can only listen to the decree. Lu Baiyue's tone was stiff. However, that brat better not have any wild thoughts. One more thing, our Lu family has always been independent. We do not need to rely on any princes. I, Lu Baiyue, will not marry the seventh prince for benefits. The seventh prince is a deep person. Although he imitates the emperor, he is not as broad-minded as the emperor. Daughter, what do you mean? Lu Chongshao knew that his daughter had many tricks up her sleeves. She had a strong character and would never admit defeat. Most importantly, she was loved by the emperor. Everything is fake. Only power is real. My priority now is to reach the Tao state. Lu Baiyue said. Although the imperial court has unified the world, the monsters and barbarians have not been destroyed. Otherwise, the emperor would not have mobilized manpower and resources to build the Great Wall that stretches for hundreds of thousands of miles. If I can reach the Tao state in a short period of time, I can apply to the imperial court to be a general at the border and kill the monsters and barbarians. Then, I can escape from the troubles in the capital. After all, the emperor only said that I am close to that brat, but he did not decree a marriage. The emperor has the determination to sweep away the decadent trend and create a new era. He said that I can choose for myself, and he will not go back on his word. Reaching the Tao state is the difference between a mortal and a celestial. It is not that easy. Lu Chongshao shook his head. I have practiced hard for 40 years. I only stepped into the Tao state 5 years ago because of a lucky encounter. I obtained the reborn pill made by an ancient master. I know how difficult it is. It is impossible for you to reach the Tao state in a short period of time. Where there is a will, there is a way. Lu Baiyue looked determined. Nanshan hunting ground. In a canyon there was a gurgling stream. Spring water seeped out of the 2 rocks, and the ground was mottled with moss. Originally, the atmosphere in the valley was peaceful, but the hissing sound destroyed everything. It was a giant snake, as thick as a human's leg. It was 4 to 5 feet long, and it was spitting out its red tongue. It stared at Gu Chensha. Gu Chensha held a dagger in his hand and squatted down like a toad. He gathered his strength and was ready to fight for his life. He came to Nanshan to hunt again. He wanted to kill a tiger and a wolf as a sacrifice to get the tiger-wolf pill. However, he did not find the tiger, but the fierce snake in the canyon. He did not dare to let his guard down. This snake was much stronger than the tiger. It was a ferocious creature, and it would have no problem swallowing a person alive. Whoosh! The snake coiled up and bit at him. It was as fast as a skilled swordsman. The stench of blood rushed to his face, making him want to puke. Gu Chensha hurriedly moved to the side. His body movement was ordinary, but it was very effective. According to his previous skills, he would definitely be buried in the snake's stomach if he met this fierce snake. However, he had the strength of a bear and wolf, and he had already digested it. His martial arts had reached the acme of perfection, so dodging the snake's mouth was nothing. Kill! His dagger glowed and drew an arc. He used the move, rhinoceros gazing at the moon, to cut the snake's weak point. This was also the basic martial arts of the royal family. It was very practical when practiced well. The snake's head retracted and its tail snapped back. Gu Chensha felt the danger. He used all his strength and jumped to the side again. Bang! The rocks on the ground were cracked by the snake's tail. If he did not dodge in time, his brain would have been smashed. This snake is very proficient in attacking technique. No wonder the Tao of martial arts is comprehended from animals. When I fight with this snake, it seems that my understanding of the snake fist has deepened. Gu Chensha encountered danger after danger, but he felt more and more carefree. Boom! He jumped up again. His body was like an ape, and his dagger glowed with a cold light. The fierce snake attacked from the left and right, wanting to bite Gu Chensha. However, it could not succeed. Instead, its body was covered with cuts and bruises, and it gradually lost its ferocity. Total annihilation. Gu Chencha's chi circulated in his body. He was very carefree. With a long roar, he actually chopped off the snake's head. Although the snake's head was chopped off, it still opened its mouth and kept twisting. It was obvious that it was not dead yet. At this time, Gu Chensha hurriedly took out the heaven offering talisman. He smeared the snake's blood and his own on it, offering the snake's soul to the heavens. The snake's twisting stopped immediately. Its shadow appeared on the talisman, and it was pulled into an unfathomable space. After receiving the sacrifice, a great force came from the depths of space and time again. After 3 sacrifices, Gu Chensha was already prepared. He crossed his arms and stood in a circle. This was the mother fist technique, the chi-holding stance. It adjusted his chi and blood and smoothed his meridians. In stillness there was calmness, and in calmness there was wisdom. As expected, his body was infused with power. His blood vessels were purple, and they were like giant earthworms. His veins were like iron clothes, covering his whole body. It seemed that he had cultivated the iron shirt to the highest realm. The power of the giant snake far surpassed that of the tiger. After the sacrifice, Gu Chensha experienced unprecedented pain. He felt that all the meridians in his body were breaking, and his internal organs were about to explode. He could not even think clearly. However, he knew that this was a sign of refining the body and purifying the marrow. He could not stand still. He had to circulate this power and circulate it throughout his body. According to his fist technique, he had to circulate the power up and down. This was called marrow cleansing. At this time, he endured the pain and performed the basic fist technique of the royal family. Black tiger steals heart, total annihilation, rhinoceros gazing at the moon, 100 feet piercing, cross-chain, his moves became faster and faster. The power in his body was released along with the moves, and it gradually flowed along with the fist technique. All of a sudden, a loud bang sounded, and the power returned to his dantian. That was close. When Gu Chensha regained his senses, he was sweating profusely. He knew that the power of the fierce snake was too great for him to absorb. If he had not released a portion of the power through the fist technique, he might really have exploded. It seemed that he could not sacrifice recklessly. Fortunately, after 3 months of research, he had read many ancient books about the sacrifice, and he had deduced some insights from them. He could use the sacrifice to practice his fist technique. Ha! He circulated his energy slightly, and his fist turned as black as steel. When he punched the boulder, it actually shattered into pieces. Looking at his hands in delight, Lin Fan thought, "My current strength is probably on par with a 4th-layer mortal realm master, but my control of force and mastery of martial arts are still inferior to a grandmaster." There was a limit to the strength of a grandmaster, which was about 3 bulls. Even a talented grandmaster with innate divine strength could not exceed 5 bulls. That was the limit of the human body. Only by stepping into the Tao realm could one absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth and use the spiritual qi to nourish one's body. Only then could one reach the strength of 9 bulls and 2 tigers. Now that Gu Chensha had sacrificed the chicken, wolf, bear, and python, his strength was almost 4 bulls, which was comparable to a peak grandmaster. Unfortunately, his martial arts cultivation was not high enough, and he still lacked comprehension, so he could not reach the peak. In the remaining time, the sacrifice would be useless. He would have to rely on his martial arts to cultivate more profound martial art. Only then could he become a true grandmaster. Whoosh! He leaped up like an agile monkey and scurried up the slippery cliff, as if he was walking on flat ground. In half the time it took to drink a cup of tea, he reached the top of the cliff and looked down, looking for his next prey. He wanted to kill the tiger-wolf sacrifice and obtain the tiger-wolf pill. Chapter 9. Snowflake Overhead. Gu Chunxia struck with both palms and knocked out another tiger. The tiger was huge and yellow, with deep fangs and a mouth full of blood. It had just hunted a wild goat, and when it saw Gu Chunxia appear, it pounced to eat him, but was defeated by his bare fists. After knocking out the tiger, Gu Chunxia took the 5-colored soil and built a small altar. The 5-colored soil was everywhere, so it was effortless. The heaven altar in the capital was built with 5-colored soil. After the altar was built, Gu Chunxia took out the heaven sacrificial decree and placed the prepared medicinal ingredients on the altar. These medicinal ingredients were not rare. With the great Yong dynasty's capital's business being developed, as long as one had money, one could buy them. Although he had been embezzled, he still had some savings, and could afford to buy some medicinal ingredients that were not very precious. These medicinal ingredients were just a primer, to change the power of the sacrifice and condense the pill. On the altar there was a fainted wolf. He took out a dagger and killed the tiger, letting the blood drip on the heaven sacrificial decree. This time, he did not drip his own blood. As expected, the tiger's soul was absorbed, and the surging power met with the medicinal ingredients and the small formation of the 5-colored soil sacrificial altar, and started to spin. ZZT 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 ZZT. As if the water was boiling, Gu Chunxia saw a green energy squirming on the altar, and finally igniting into a big fire. In the big fire, a pill was finally condensed. It was green like jade. As expected, it succeeded. This is a tiger-wolf pill. After eating it, one's strength increases greatly. Although I have no use for it, it can be given to loyal subordinates to increase their strength. Gu Chunxia was overjoyed. The ancient tiger-wolf pill was finally condensed through the sacrifice. Those simple medicinal ingredients were like plaster for tofu. If not for the few medicinal ingredients interfering with the power of the sacrifice, the tiger-wolf's strength would have dissipated in the air, wasted. He did not drip his own blood, and the power of the sacrifice could not surge into his body, so it remained in the air. After obtaining the tiger-wolf pill, he slowly returned to the palace. Just as he entered the courtyard, his foster son stood at the door with a swollen face. His teeth were missing, and he spoke with a lisp. "My lord, you're finally back," he said with a sad face. "What's going on?" Gu Chunxia was furious in his heart, but he remained calm and collected. He knew that the little eunuchs and palace maids by his side were often beaten. Even he himself was sometimes beaten by the princes. This was already a common occurrence. As a result, the palace maids and eunuchs who followed him were all beaten up and tried to find a way to leave. They would rather empty the toilet bowl than follow him. As a result, the palace maids and eunuchs who followed him were changed one after another. Only his little godson was loyal and devoted. He had once suspected that his adopted son was a spy sent by someone else, but after many years of observation and paying attention to the details, he realized that this person was sincere. "Master, you still don't know?" Xiaoshunzi's eyes widened. "I heard news from the inner palace that Yi is about to come of age. His Imperial Majesty has bestowed Lu Baiyue's hand in marriage to Yi. Right now, Yi is the envy of all the princes. Almost all of them want to kill Yi. Today, I went to the catering department to ask for some food for Yi to eat. Coincidentally, I ran into the 7th Master's subordinate eunuch, Xiao Duozi. He immediately slapped me and even beat me up." "What? Bestowed Lu Baiyue's hand in marriage to me?" Gu Chunxia was shocked. "That can't be. Is this a rumor?" Lu Baiyue was the pride of the heavens. Some ministers even thought that she was the best candidate for the future empress. She was also proud and arrogant, and looked down on all the men in the world. Of course, this was only secondary. The main reason was that this woman hated him so much was because he had offered his blood to the imperial court. News from the inner palace said that the Duke of Yuan is asking about the marriage, and the emperor wants Liu Baiwei to get close to Yi first. Yi, if it was any other prince, this would be a good thing. However, to me, this is a great disaster. I have to risk my life to resign so that I can be safe for the rest of my life. Xia Shunzi's voice trembled. I know about this. They are just getting close to each other. There is no real decree to bestow marriage. There is no need to make a fuss. Let's just wait and see. Gu Chensha composed himself. If this is father's intention, then I am afraid I cannot resign. Furthermore, I have been pretending to be a fool for so long. When I hear about this, I should be happy and not resign immediately. If I do that, everyone will know that I am hiding my strength and biding my time. They will be even more wary of me. Right now, I can only continue to pretend to be a fool. I am afraid. Xia Shunzi was still trembling with fear. What are you afraid of? Come in with me. Gu Chensha returned to his room and took out the tiger wolf pill. Xia Shunzi, take this medicine. Yes. Xia Shunzi did not hesitate. He was not afraid that it was poison and swallowed it. A moment later, green gas appeared on Xia Shunzi's body. It surrounded his entire body and went in and out of his 7 orifices. A huge force reshaped his body. Instantly his aura changed. He became vigorous and forceful. His feminine aura was swept away and replaced by the fearless master of tigers and wolves on the battlefield. His aura calmed down. Xia Shunzi looked at his hands with a dazed expression. He felt that his body had an inexhaustible amount of power. What is this? I feel like I am a different person. Don't worry about it. You only need to know that you are extremely powerful now. You will be able to get twice the result with half the effort when practicing martial art. Gu Chensha looked around. Also, keep today's matter a secret. Yes. Also, go and get some green grasshopper. Remember, I want it alive. Yes. Green grasshopper was a type of insect. According to folklore, if one smeared its blood on money, the money would automatically fly back after it was spent. That was why money was called green grasshopper. This was a legend because people had tried it, but it did not have any effect. The Daong dynasty had already started to issue paper money. However, if one had gold and silver, they could still go to the country's bank to exchange the gold and silver for paper money. The ancient history books recorded that using the green grasshopper as a sacrifice could obtain gold and silver. Gu Chensha wanted to try it. His monthly allowance had been greatly deducted, and he was struggling to make ends meet. If he could really obtain gold and silver from the sacrifice, then he would no longer be short of money. In the future, there would be many places where he would need to spend money. Xia Shunzi was rather capable. The next day, he used a cloth bag to carry the green grasshopper and waited in the inn. The green grasshopper was like a cicada or a butterfly. It was everywhere. Go and keep an eye on the outside in case anyone notices me. Taking the green grasshopper, Gu Chensha ordered. Yes. Xia Shunzi went out and looked around. Gu Chensha took the large copper basin. In the copper basin, there was a gold particle the size of a broad bean. He had saved it for so many years, so he still had some gold. Taking out the green grasshopper, he used a needle to extract its blood and smeared it on the heaven sacrifice decree. Bang! A golden stream of air appeared in the copper basin. It circulated slightly but could not fly out. Instead, it settled in the basin and finally turned into the same gold particle. It's actually real? Gu Chensha was overjoyed. He was about to kill the green grasshopper in the bag one by one and sacrifice it to the gold particle. However, he saw the insects inside the bag wailing and squeaking. He could not help but feel pity for them. Ferocious beasts are vicious. Killing tigers, wolves, bears and pythons to sacrifice to the heavens is not a problem. The green grasshopper is not poisonous and does not harm humans. Killing the weak for the sake of gold seems to be immoral. However, what qualifications do they have to obtain the heaven sacrifice decree? Money can be earned in other ways. Killing to earn money seems to be heartless. He shook his head and released the green grasshopper. After doing this, he suddenly felt much more open-minded. Master, it's time. Let's return to the palace early. Otherwise, we won't be able to enter the palace with the key and we'll have to sleep in the inn. That will cost a lot of money. Xiaoshunzi said softly outside. That's good. Gu Qinsha nodded. Ever since Xiaoshunzi took the tiger wolf pill, his strength had increased several times and he could do things efficiently. If he could have a few more subordinates like this, it would be much less troublesome. The two of them left the inn and entered the palace from the north gate. The north gate was a side gate. It was responsible for transporting vegetables, chickens, ducks, fish, pigs and goats into the palace. It was also responsible for transporting the rubbish out of the palace. It was the filthiest gate. Normally, eunuchs and palace maids with a bit of status would not enter the palace from the north gate. However, Gu Chensha's courtyard was in the north of the palace, so he had no choice but to enter from there. This was also the meaning of the palace's powerful people insulting him. After passing through the north gate, it was connected in all directions. It was like the formation of the 8 trigrams. It led to the imperial kitchen, the purchasing office, the warehouse, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the manufacturing department, and so on. Even an old man who had stayed in the palace for 10 years would get lost. Gu Qinsha had no idea how big the palace was. He could not go to the back palace, and there were many forbidden areas that were heavily guarded. When he and Xiaoyi walked into a narrow alley further north, a large palanquin came towards them. It was carried by 8 eunuchs, and there were 4 eunuchs holding melons, fruits and tea to serve them. The other 2 maids were carrying a gold and silver incense burner. The fragrance wafted out, making people feel relaxed and happy. The large palanquin was also made of fragrant wood. It was inlaid with beautiful jade and jewels, and it shone brightly. It was very ostentatious and rich. This is the 18th prince's palanquin. Sir, let's give way, Xiaoshunzi said. Gu Qinsha was the 19th prince. He had not yet come of age and lived in the palace. The 18th prince was the same. The two of them were only a few days apart in age. They were both princes, but the difference in treatment was like heaven and earth. When the 18th prince went out, he was elegant and dignified. He was surrounded by many servants, while Gu Qinsha walked with a little eunuch. The 18th prince was about to come of age, but he had already bought a manor in the capital as a residence. It was built magnificently like a heavenly palace. According to the news from the inner court, he would be conferred the title of duke as soon as he came of age. The 18th prince's mother was one of the 4 imperial noble consorts, second only to the empress. This imperial noble consort's family was a 1,000-year-old aristocratic family, the Shui clan. It was rumored that they were the descendants of the ancient black deity. They had existed for 1,000 years and did not fall even after the change of dynasties. The heavenly talisman Great Emperor had relied on the Shui clan to dig the canal that connected the east, west, north, and south. The 18th prince had such a strong backing. His martial arts skills were superb, and his wealth could move the gods. He was the most powerful candidate for the throne. His name was Gu Hongsha. Gu Qinsha did not want to be entangled with him. He walked to the side and avoided him. This was a sign of showing weakness. Things were not as simple as he thought. The large palanquin stopped in front of him. The curtains were drawn by a eunuch, and a young man walked out. This young man wore a silver-white brocade robe with cloud patterns embroidered on it. It was simple and elegant. His face was fair, but his body was straight like a spear. There was no joy or anger on his face, and his eyes were deep. He was a powerful character. Congratulations, 19th younger brother. Gu Hongsha said lightly. 18th brother, why would I be happy? Gu Qinsha had a silly smile on his face. I don't understand what you're saying. There's news from the inner court. Father has summoned Lu Chongshao, and he intends to betroth Lu Baiwe to you. Lu Baiwe is a proud daughter of the heavens. Many brothers want to marry her. Isn't this happiness? Gu Hongsha's indifferent tone made it hard to guess his true thoughts. Gu Chensha made up his mind to stay the same. He laughed foolishly and said, I'm not that lucky. All right. Gu Hongsha waved his hand. Old 19, don't pretend to be a fool here. I know that you're hiding your strength and biding your time. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that. However, it's understandable. You have your difficulties. Gu Chensha was still smiling foolishly. It was one thing for others to speculate about him, but he still had to pretend to the end. Chapter 10. Brother 18, I don't understand what you're saying. Gu Chensha lowered his head. Submit your resignation to Father immediately. Kneel down and refuse to accept it. That way you can still have a chance of survival. Otherwise, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and many other brothers will not let you go. Even Lu Baiwe will kill you. You should understand this very well. Gu Hongsha flicked his finger. But this is decided by Father. What can I do? Gu Chensha continued to play dumb. Stubborn. Gu Hongsha's eyes flashed with disdain. You can't be thinking of marrying Lu Baiwe and then thinking that you can use the Lu family's power, right? If that's really what you think, then you're extremely stupid. I haven't received any news yet. Maybe it's fake. Brother 18 is right. If such a situation occurs, I will definitely resign. Gu Chensha was famous for not having a temper and being a yes-man. This was the rule of survival for many years. He was very shrewd and would not act on impulse. It's good that you know. Let me remind you to be careful when you meet 10th. After he received the news, he has already spread the word that he will find a chance to destroy you. Gu Hongsha saw that the other party was obedient. He took out a glittering pocket watch and looked at it. He got up and sat in the sedan chair. Let's go out of the palace and see how my newly built mansion is doing. Master, I went to supervise the day before yesterday. The pond has been set up and filled with spring water. We also made a toilet bowl that can flush water. It's a strange trick made by the Celestial Designer Institute. There's also big shiny glass and the floor is made of Kuan Mountain sapphire. It's simply a heavenly palace. The head eunuch fawned and led the way in front. The sedan chair left the palace just like that. Master, I've heard of the 18th prince's mansion. It takes up a lot of land and has 3,000 to 5,000 servants. The thing he took out is called a pocket watch. It's also made by the Celestial Designer Institute. It's very accurate to tell the time. After the emperor ascended the throne, he gathered the world's skilled craftsmen and seemed to have made many new things. The little godson was rather envious. Master, you still don't have a mansion? I think it's time to prepare. That can't be helped. Where do I get so much money? Gu Chensha sighed. The 18th prince's mother is from the Shui family and wants him to compete for the throne. The emperor didn't appoint a crown prince and let the princes build their own mansions. This is a good move. Every prince is ambitious and wants to do their jobs well. His godson said, I heard that the 18th prince's Dragon King force has recently reached the 5th level and is close to becoming a grandmaster. However, if we were to fight, I might not necessarily lose to him. With my current cultivation, I can always amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Why do I need to hide my strength and bide my time? It'll just mean it. Not. Don't stepping into the Dao Ti. You. Gu Tian. Dao. Moreover, the Dragon King force is a royal-level cultivation method. Even though I have great strength, the basic boxing skills of the imperial family I've learned are only of the common level. If I were to fight with old 18, I'm afraid I would be slightly inferior. I Wang. I can. But I Don and I Wu. Do you have any more of those pills? A pill like that is worth a lot. I'm afraid it'll be worth a fortune. I have such an elixir, but if I sell it, it will cause a big sensation. The marrow-cleansing elixir, vitality elixir, and soul-strengthening elixir are all secret elixirs of the royal family that are worth tens of thousands. My elixir is dozens of times more effective than theirs. Gu Chensha waved his hand. I have to be patient. I have some achievements, but I'm still a frog in a well. By the way, the 18th prince told me to be careful when I meet the 10th prince. I remember a few years ago, the 10th prince almost beat me to death. The little godson suddenly remembered. That was instigated by Lu Baiwe. 10th brother has a violent temperament and does things without considering the consequences. However, this kind of temperament is deeply favored by the emperor. Most importantly, his martial arts are profound and he is born with divine strength. He is also a terrifying character. Gu Chensha frowned. The two of them went back to the courtyard. The sky darkened and the small courtyard was gloomy. There wasn't even a lamp. The autumn wind was rustling and chilly. The weeds in the courtyard swayed like the hands of a ghost. Pucci. Gu Chensha lit the candles and the room became livelier. Master, our candles are almost finished. The Ministry of Internal Affairs hasn't sent them over. It's autumn now. Long johns should be distributed. It seems like the Ministry of Internal Affairs isn't going to provide us with them. Gu Chensha checked the supplies in the room. I heard that the 18th prince doesn't use candles or oil lamps at night. He uses moonstones. This treasure absorbs enough sunlight during the day. At night, it shines like a bright moon. It's very bright. We're used to having our monthly allowance and various supplies deducted. Now it's even worse. We can't count on the Ministry of Internal Affairs. We'll have to rely on ourselves. Gu Chensha poured himself a cup of water and took a sip. It tasted astringent and he spat it out. This water isn't good either. It's bitter water. They all drink the water from the cold jade spring. Gu Chensha had no choice. The water in the palace was transported from outside. Water was also divided into different grades. The eunuchs and palace maids drank well water. The well water in the capital city was bitter. As for the princes and imperial concubines, they drank the water from the cold jade mountain, which was hundreds of miles away. The interior of the cold jade mountain was rich in jade. There was a 10,000-year-old cold spring underground. It was sweet and refreshing. It had long been sealed off as a forbidden area for the royal family. The Ministry of Internal Affairs would fetch water every morning and send it to the palace. As a prince, Gu Chensha was given 3 barrels of cold jade spring every day. However, it was deducted. He was like a lowly eunuch, and could only drink the bitter well water. The eunuchs took the water and secretly sold it. Could be sold for a good price in the big restaurants in the capital city. Other than a large amount of monthly allowance, the princes also had clothes, spices, tonics, weapons, jewelry, fruits, ice in the summer, and smokeless charcoal in the winter. It was truly a luxurious life. In recent years, the Heavenly Designer Institute produced things like glass, clocks, moonstones, cold beads, and fire bead. The moonstones were used for lighting. The fire beads were used for hanging in the house during the winter. The entire house would be as warm as spring, and there was no need to burn charcoal. The cold beads were hung in the summer and were pleasantly cool. Of course, he could not enjoy any of these things. In the past, the people from the Ministry of Internal Affairs did not dare to be so excessive. They would more or less give me some face. But now they are deducting everything. Gu Chensha shook his head. There is no need to care about this now. Hard work and hard training are the most important things. Little godson, how is your martial arts practice? Master, I have been practicing the royal family's basic fist technique that you taught me. I have gained some experience and can be considered a martial warrior now. The godson quickly tidied up the room and boiled water. Master's martial arts should be at the Grandmaster realm, right? Grandmaster realm is easier said than done. Gu Chensha thought carefully. My strength is enough, but my cultivation is still a step away. It is probably because of the cultivation method. I am only practicing the royal family's basic martial arts. I know how to circulate energy, concentrate, and breathe. The foundation is solid, but I still need to learn more profound martial arts. For example, royal-grade martial arts have the effects of gathering energy, concentrating, meditating, thinking, refining essence, cultivating energy, opening ethereal, and comprehending the Tao. Treasured-grade martial arts can also help me reach the Grandmaster level. Gu Chensha knew that if he wanted to break through to the Grandmaster level, he must practice treasured-grade martial arts. Martial arts were divided into common grade, precious grade, royal grade, emperor grade, immortal grade, and heaven grade. The sacrifice to heaven art could only increase his strength. If he wanted to use his strength perfectly and change his life form, he still needed a more profound cultivation method. Actually, it is not difficult for Master to learn high-grade martial arts. As long as I submit a report saying that my martial arts are about to break through to the Grandmaster level, the Imperial Clan Court can only report it to the Emperor. They will definitely grant you the royal family's high-level martial arts. I heard that 10th Master's Slaying Thunder Force has reached an extremely high level and you are trying to break through to the Tao realm. The Godson was good at gathering information. That is not appropriate. I cannot expose my current strength. Gu Chensha said, if I am falsely accused of being a traitor of the Imperial Clan Court, with people adding fuel to the fire, who knows what the Imperial Clan Court will do to me? That is true. Master has thought it through. The Godson said, the problem is that if I do not obtain a treasured grade martial art, no matter how strong I am, I will not be able to break through to the Grandmaster level, let alone the Tao realm. Let me think about it. Gu Chensha touched his forehead. This matter cannot be delayed. Originally, I could have thought about it in the long run, but Father actually let Lu Baiwei get close to me. It is the same as putting me on a fire to roast. Only by increasing my strength can I safely survive this disaster. In the dead of night, no one spoke. The Godson tiptoed out of the room and went to the side room to sleep. Gu Chensha picked up the history book and carefully read it again. The history of the dynasties in the Land of Infinity was as vast as the sea. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of years had passed. There were also countless legends from the ancient times. It was quite tiring to read them one by one. Just as he was reading, he found a historical record of the ancient emperor. The ancient emperor comprehended the essence of the heavens from the heaven sacrifice talisman and could cultivate the emperor's god investiture technique. When this technique was mastered, it could sweep away all evil, enforce justice on behalf of the heavens, suppress mountains and rivers, move the stars, and confer titles to the gods. All the martial arts in the world evolved from this technique. Emperor's God Investiture Technique. Gu Chensha's eyes twinkled. This martial art is powerful. How do I figure it out? How do I obtain such a martial art from the Heaven Sacrifice Talisman? If he could obtain the cultivation method of the Emperor's God Investiture Technique from the Heaven Sacrifice Talisman, then entering the Tao realm would not be a problem. At the same realm, there was a huge difference in the level of the martial arts. For example, the 18th Prince Gu Hongsha cultivated the Dragon King Force and was about to break through to the Grandmaster level. He might not be as strong as Gu Chensha's Bear-Wolf Python, but if the two of them fought, Gu Hongsha would definitely win. The Dragon King Force was unpredictable and mysterious. Using basic martial arts to fight against it would be courting death. Basic martial arts train the body, muscles, bones, and skin. The Dragon King Force, on the other hand, was a combination of the soul, aura, and mind. When it was used, it would be like being possessed by a ghost. Of course, everyone had to first train hard in basic martial arts. Only after achieving great success could they learn higher-level martial arts. Otherwise, if they forced themselves to train, they would lose their mind and die. Now, Gu Chencha's foundation was so strong that no one could match it. He just lacked the key to open the door to a higher level. The level of the Emperor's God investiture technique definitely surpassed the king, emperor, deity, and even the heavenly level. It was the general outline of the heavenly Tao. How do I figure it out? How do I sacrifice it? How do I exchange it for the Emperor's God investiture technique? He read carefully, but did not find any specific records. The history books are as vast as the ocean. Trying to find clues in them is like looking for a needle in a haystack. If only there was a table of contents. No wonder the Heavenly Talisman tome was compiled. If I wanted to find any information, I could just look up the table of contents. That would be perfect. Gu Chensha now felt that the compilation of the Heavenly Talisman tome was a great achievement. If he wanted any information, he could find it by looking up the table of contents. Chapter 11. The Emperor's God Bestowment Art, an Ancient Secret Art. Rumor has it that only those who have obtained the Heaven Sacrifice Talisman can comprehend it. As long as I learn it, I won't have to live such a useless life. Poof. He blew out the candle but did not sleep. Instead, he continued to read in the dark. Ever since he sacrificed the bear, wolf, and python souls, his eyes were like lightning. He could see clearly in the dark. He only needed to sleep for 2 hours to be full of energy. He spent the rest of his time reading and practicing martial arts. Other princes worked hard to fight for power, but he worked hard to protect his life, so he had to work even harder. He could read 10 lines at a glance, and his memory also improved greatly. Although he didn't have a photographic memory, he wasn't far from it. He flipped through the books one by one, and his efficiency was extremely high. Suddenly, he became spirited because he saw this passage in a history book. The Emperor ruled the world and held great power. He controlled life and death, gathering the power of all living beings. With a word, he could move mountains and fill seas. The ancient emperor held the Heaven Sacrifice Talisman, so it was not strange for him to have such power. However, the current emperor, without the Heaven Sacrifice Talisman, could still command the people. Why? It was because of the rules of etiquette. Etiquette was deeply rooted in people's hearts. All living beings feared the emperor's power. The stars held the moon, and thousands of glory gathered in one person. Etiquette could be said to be the ultimate Tao. Because the Heaven Sacrifice Talisman was lost, the human race had no leader and it was inevitable for them to kill each other. Thus, the saints created etiquette to replace the will of heaven. Etiquette was the will of heaven. Therefore, although the Heaven Sacrifice Talisman was lost, the Emperor's edict still had the Emperor's chi. The only flaw was that the ancient Emperor sat on the throne and used the Emperor's chi to activate the Heaven Bestowment Art. Now, this martial art has become the ultimate. This was the opinion and discussion of some great scholars in the history books. But after Gu Chensha saw it, it was no less than finding a peerless treasure. Simply put, the Emperor's edict contained the Emperor's chi. As long as one obtained the edict and offered it, they could comprehend the Emperor's God Bestowment Art. Although the Emperor was not the Emperor, he was respected by the people. He commanded the world and held great power. As time passed, the dignity of etiquette was deeply rooted in people's hearts. It would interfere with the heavenly Tao and naturally, a trace of the Emperor's chi would be formed. Naturally, ordinary countries and imperial courts wouldn't have the aura of the Son of Heaven. But for the Heavenly Talisman Dynasty, 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 the Heavenly Talisman Dynasty. Gu Chensha was also a knowledgeable person. He knew that after a few decades, the heavenly talisman emperor's achievements would increase and the fate of his empire would grow stronger. At that time, even without the heavenly decree, he would be no different from the ancient heavenly sons. If it was an ordinary person, it would be almost impossible to obtain the emperor's imperial decree. However, Gu Chensha was a prince, so it was relatively easy for him to obtain the imperial decree. The imperial edict. I think I have it here. It's the imperial edict that conferred Mother the title of imperial noble consort. Gu Chensha got up and found a small box in the depths of the cabinet. There were some relics in the box, among which was an imperial edict. This was an item left behind by his mother after she committed suicide. As the Princess of Xianchao, my mother received countless treasures as part of her dowry, but after her death, all of them were taken away by the eunuchs under the orders of the concubines and princes. Only these ordinary items were left behind. Thinking of this, Gu Chensha felt indignant. There was no point in those people taking away the imperial edict that conferred titles, otherwise they would also take everything away. Unfortunately, at that time, Gu Chensha was still young. How would he know how to protect his mother's inheritance? Over the years, he gradually found out which of the concubines and princes his mother's precious treasures had fallen into, and he would take them back in the future. Unfolding the imperial edict, a large blood-red seal entered his eyes. It was the imperial jade seal. There were 6 large words, the emperor's treasure, but it was not the 4 bird-shaped words, ordered by the heavens. The emperor's imperial jade seal was particular when using it. The real imperial jade seal could only be used to issue an imperial edict, and to offer sacrifices to the heavens and earth. The other imperial seals had their own uses. For example, the emperor's treasure was used to confer titles to concubines and relatives of the imperial family, so it was called the emperor's treasure. Although it was not the imperial jade seal, it was still a symbol of imperial power, and it still contained the emperor's qi. More importantly, the person who issued this imperial edict was still in power, and the emperor's qi had not dissipated. If it was the previous emperor's imperial edict, it would be useless. The world had changed masters, and the emperor's qi had dissipated. Gu Chensha could feel an inexplicable divine power on the imperial seal. This was purely spiritual sensing. If that's the case, I will begin the sacrifice. He took out the imperial edict, and with a click, the imperial edict burned. Then, he cut his finger and dripped blood on it. 1. The imperial edict seemed to sense the emperor's qi in the imperial edict, and it also emitted a green light that circulated. The air shook, and the imperial edict disappeared without a trace. However, in the depths of the green light, many light shadows appeared. These light shadows suddenly shot out, and entered Gu Chensha's mind. Instantly, he was stunned. In his mind, many figures were practicing profound martial arts. The profound martial arts merged with his thoughts. He saw a figure walking on the ground, and the sun and moon appeared in the sky above his head. This figure's body also emitted a brilliant golden light, and the light of the sun and moon reflected each other. Countless thoughts and images came one after another. Gu Chensha seemed to have obtained a vast cultivation method, and his body involuntarily practiced with the cultivation method. In the depths of his mind, there was a will that sounded like a great bell. The Son of Heaven, shine with the sun and moon, live as long as heaven and earth, and share the same heart with all living beings. These 3 give birth to all things, ever-changing. Suddenly, the will came to an abrupt halt. The green light in the imperial edict also disappeared. The transmission of cultivation method and thoughts was interrupted in the air. Gu Chensha woke up, and after a long time, he regained his senses. Unfortunately, the emperor's qi on this imperial edict is not strong, and I have only obtained the superficial knowledge of the emperor's god investiture art. So the emperor's god investiture art has 3 realms: shine with the sun and moon, live as long as heaven and earth, and share the same heart. I just practiced the first move of the first realm. The true emperor's brilliance was comparable to the light of the sun and moon, and his lifespan was the same as heaven and earth. That was fine, but in the end, share the same heart with all living beings, and become one with all living beings. What kind of realm would that be? Gu Chernsha had just learned 1/10 of the first realm, but he still benefited a lot. As long as he fully comprehended it and practiced hard, he would be able to step into the Tao realm. This imperial edict was only an imperial edict for the imperial noble consort, and the emperor's qi was not strong. If it was a real imperial edict for ascending to the throne, the emperor's qi would probably be 10 times stronger. However, such edicts were hidden in the depths of the forbidden central hall of the palace, and it was impossible to obtain. Shoo! Gu Chernsha let out a long breath. Enough, enough. Even if it is just a little bit of martial arts, I am afraid I will not be able to comprehend it without decades of hard work. Putting away the imperial edict, he sat cross-legged and began to think about what he had just learned. At this moment, the sky was already slightly bright, but the moon had not yet set in the west. The sun had already begun to rise, and the phenomenon of the sun and the moon appearing together appeared between heaven and earth. Receiving this feeling, Gu Chensha's body began to tremble slightly, and his pores opened, showing signs of absorbing the essence of the sun and the moon. Of course, this was an illusion, and it was impossible to truly reach this realm. However, he had already entered a state of meditation where his mind and the sun and the moon traveled together. This was the art of cultivating the mind, and it was not something that could be achieved by superior martial arts. The Son of Heaven's investiture art was a peerless ancient martial art, and compared to the Dragon King Force and Thunder Slash Force, it was hundreds of times better. Gu Chernsha had only scratched the surface of the first realm. Sun and moon shine together, and as soon as he stepped into the wondrous realm, he had an epiphany. Crackle! The pores on his body pulsed, and wisps of white smoke spurted out like burning smoke. The smoke gradually spread and enveloped his body like a cocoon, until the sky was bright. With another sound, the cocoon cracked and the smoke dissipated. Gu Chernsha no longer had the aura of showing off his abilities. Instead, he had returned to his natural state, and his eyes were lifeless. This was another step into a whole new realm. He had reached the 4th level of the mortal realm, and he had reached great heights, becoming a martial arts grandmaster. Breaking out of the cocoon and becoming a butterfly in just one night. Such a cultivation technique was truly shocking. No wonder the ancient demonic gods were terrified of it. Sun and moon refining mind, the spirit is glorious, and the light is bright. This is too wonderful for words. After cultivating for a while, I feel much clearer. There are no distracting thoughts, only pure sincerity. Gu Chernsha was full of joy. There are 10 forms to sun and moon shine together. I have already mastered the first form, sun and moon refining. If I want to learn the other 9 forms, I will need to sacrifice more imperial edict. His body moved slightly, and he wandered around the room, landing on the ground without a sound. Creak! The little godson pushed the door open and saw that the room was full of shadows. They were as fast as ghosts, and the shadows retracted, forming Gu Chernsha again. Grandpa, how come your martial arts and movement technique have changed? And your temperament? Have you reached the Grandmaster realm? But without a precious martial art, it is impossible to refine the spirit and reach the Grandmaster realm. The little godson was shocked at first, and then he was overjoyed. Not bad, there is always a way out. Gu Chernsha walked out of the room, and he was bathed in the morning light. My strength has increased by leaps and bounds, and I have stepped into a whole new level. If I continue to train hard, there is hope for me to reach the Tao realm. The first form of the Son of Heaven sealing God art's first realm, sun and moon refining, was enough for him to refine his spirit and break through to the Tao realm. After reaching the Grandmaster realm, the most important thing wasn't to train one's strength, because the physical body had reached its limit. If one wanted to improve, they had to switch to cultivating the spirit. Thus, most of the martial arts above the precious grade were spirit cultivation technique. The Son of Heaven sealing God art had already surpassed all other grades of martial arts. Not to mention that he had already learned one form, it was more than enough for him to step into the Tao realm. Sun and moon refining was a form of spirit cultivation, movement technique, blood energy, soul wandering, and mind connecting with the sun and moon. Of course, Gu Chensha had only scratched the surface, and it would take him a long time to familiarize himself with this form. If he met 18th Prince Gu Hongsha now, his Dragon King energy wouldn't be a match for him. Precious grade martial arts could help him reach the Grandmaster realm, and King grade martial arts could help him reach the Tao realm. Morning. Master, I have already prepared breakfast. The godson carried out porridge, vegetables, tofu, and also a few yellow pancakes. There was no meat, and it was really simple and pure. You eat it, I don't like to eat food recently. Gu Chensha was speaking the truth. After he sacrificed himself, the power he obtained was enough to nourish his body and maintain his life. Originally, not eating food was the first transformation of the Tao realm. With his cultivation, he was far from being able to use his mind to absorb spiritual energy to nourish his body. Luckily, the Heaven Sacrifice Decree's power was really extraordinary. It was the same as a Tao realm expert forcefully injecting Heaven Path power into his body, which was why he was able to achieve such an effect. Because of that, his cultivation was much faster than the other princes. The godson was delighted. It seems like I am about to stand out. When the time comes, I will show everyone how proud I am. Don't be arrogant. There is always someone better out there. Over the years, how many experts have been suppressed by the imperial dynasty? Under the power of the imperial dynasty, even evil gods and demons have to restrain themselves. Gu Chensha's eyes were filled with wisdom. However, I have a higher chance of staying alive. It won't be easy for anyone to harm me. Master. The godson wanted to say something, but Gu Chensha's gaze turned sharp. Someone is here. As expected, a few eunuchs appeared at the door. Aya, it is Eunuch Chen. What wind blew you here? The godson went over to welcome him. 19th Prince, I am here to deliver a letter. The middle-aged eunuch took out a letter and passed it to the godson. He didn't even bow towards Gu Chensha and just left. Damn. The godson looked at his back view. This servant doesn't bow to the prince. If I report this to the imperial clan manor, he will be beheaded. Gu Chensha shook his head. What letter? Chapter 12. It's about time for Lu Baiwei to contact me. Gu Chensha was not surprised and opened the letter. There were only 4 words on it, Canal Pier. The signature was Lu with a shallow crescent moon. Without a doubt, this was Lu Baiwei. He arranged to meet Gu Chensha at the canal pier. Let's go. We'll leave the palace and head for the canal pier. Gu Chensha passed the letter to his godson. Take it and burn it. This kind of letter is evidence against Jing. Don't leave anything behind. Yes. The most flourishing place in the Great Yong dynasty was the capital city, and the most prosperous place in the capital was the canal pier. The first achievement of the Heavenly Talisman Emperor was to build a canal to connect the 4 directions. In the 14 years of his reign, he started this huge project and completed it in a short 10 years. In ancient times, there was an emperor who used countless manpower and resources to open the North-South Canal. For a full 30 years, the people had no way to make a living, and the whole world revolted against him. In the end, the emperor was killed. However, the Heavenly Talisman Immortal Emperor was different. The moment he ascended to the throne, he immediately opened up the canal. This actually increased the morale of the people, allowing the starving people to have food to eat and even earning wages. In the process of digging the canal, if there was a mountain obstructing the way, it would vanish in just a few days. The river, which was difficult to open, was cut open by a huge force in one night. Luqing River. Countless commoners hailed this as a miracle. After a few years, everyone knew that the heavenly talisman Great Emperor was the heaven's will. Even the ghosts and gods were secretly mobilizing their strength, listening to the heavenly talisman Great Emperor's commands. As the canal was dug, the throne of the heavenly talisman Emperor grew more and more stable. In the end, the hearts of the people supported him, and no one could shake his position. Originally, the heavenly talisman Immortal Emperor was an illegitimate child who was forced to live among the commoners. After he ascended to the throne, his position wasn't stable and there were undercurrents flowing in the dark. But with the appearance of the Grand Canal, the hearts of the people were as firm as steel. Moreover, the opening of the 4 great canals had eliminated countless disasters such as floods and drought. Tens of thousands of people had a guaranteed harvest, and resources from all over the world could be continuously transported to the capital. This allowed merchants to prosper and countless people to live. Gu Chernsha stood on the dock, watching the ships coming and going, filled with emotion. It could be said that none of the previous emperors could compare to the current one. The canal was tens of thousands of feet wide, and as far as the eye could see, there was a vast expanse of mist. The water depth was even more than 1,000 feet, and no matter how deep a ship's draft was, it could pass through. This was not a small river, and it was not something that could be done by humans. There were boats everywhere on the canal. There were small boats with black awnings, and there were even large ships with 5 tusks. Apart from these, there were also angry whale ships with extremely deep draft. They were the navy of the imperial court, and their momentum was like a rainbow. Of course, the most eye-catching thing was the latest iron-armored flywheel developed by the imperial court. The ship wasn't big, and it was wrapped in iron armor. The bottom was a wheel, and it was powered by steam. When it spun, it was as fast as an arrow, and it could easily travel 1,000 miles in a day. This was a ship used by the imperial court to deliver court bulletins and memorials. It could be delivered to various provinces along the canal. With the canal, the imperial court's control over the local areas was strengthened. Countless new and novel goods were transported from all over the country to the capital and unloaded at the docks. However, the docks were very neat and orderly. In the past, the dock was dirty, messy, and controlled by gangs all year round. In the 10th year of the Heavenly Talisman, the imperial court issued a decree to ban the gangs among the people. A large number of evil gang leaders were beheaded. For a period of time, it was to everyone's satisfaction. The common people all praised the current emperor as an eternal emperor. Newspaper, today's newspaper. The imperial court has issued another announcement to strictly prohibit the trading of gold and silver among the people. All goods will be settled with paper money. Anyone who disobeys will be sent to prison. Many newspaper boys waved the newspaper in their hands and shouted, "This world is indeed well governed." Gu Chernsha thought to himself. Although he didn't have much affection for the emperor, he admired the way the emperor governed the country. The imperial family didn't have any kinship. Every prince was taken away from their mother at birth. They had a large group of nannies, palace maids, nannies, and eunuchs to take care of them. When they grew up, they would live on their own, study, and practice martial arts. The brothers were suspicious and wary of each other, and there was no way they could share their hearts. The filial piety of the father and filial piety of a small family was something the imperial family would never have. The imperial family governed the world with filial piety, but the imperial family didn't have filial piety. This couldn't be said to be ironic. However, this couldn't be helped. The importance of the throne, the divine weapon of the empire, and the power of life and death was in the hands of the officials. For the sake of this kinship, they had to let go. If there's a country, there's no home. Gu Chensha sighed to himself. Master, the letter only said that we'll be at the pier of the canal. There's no time. Are we supposed to wait here like idiots? His foster son asked. You underestimate the Lu family. I'm afraid that the moment I leave the palace, I'll be followed. They'll naturally come to see me. Gu Chensha saw through everything. Indeed, before long, a boat broke through the waves and came to a stop at the side of the pier. A man boarded the boat and walked in front of him. 19th Master, please follow me to the small boat. My master's big boat is in the middle of the river. He has prepared a banquet. Lead the way. Gu Chensha knew that this was a servant of the Lu family. He stepped onto the boat and boarded the boat. His foster son followed behind him. The small boat suddenly shot forward like an arrow. In the blink of an eye, it reached the middle of the river. This servant steered the boat steadily and moved the oars as if they were flying. However, they didn't stir up any splashes. The level of his kung fu was beyond the reach of ordinary people. He was probably even stronger than his foster son, who had taken the tiger-wolf pill. A small servant of the Lu family had such strength. No wonder they could control the government and stand tall. A large ship appeared in the middle of the river. This ship was black and was actually wrapped in black iron. It was strong and durable, and it had the ability to fight on water. From the small boat to the big ship, there was a different atmosphere inside. The railings were carved with jade, and the walls were painted with red and gold. The fragrance wafted through the air. The four sides were inlaid with large glass, and one could enjoy the beautiful scenery. The cool breeze blew gently, and the boat on the river was a rare enjoyment. The big ship had 4 floors. The first floor was the master's residence, the second floor was for the maidservants, the third floor was for the kitchen, and the bottom floor was for the sailors. The ship was also driven by flywheels, which were operated by mechanical power. It traveled on the water as if it were flying. The so-called flywheels were mechanisms created by the Heaven Palace sect. They only needed to burn kerosene and use the expansion of hot steam to drive them. This was an unprecedented change. The ship was like a black tiger crouching on the river. It could accommodate hundreds of people, and it could store enough food to support everyone's needs for 10 to 15 days. It was simply a small mansion. The people on the ship were all strong and powerful. Even the women were agile and cautious, like an army. The Lu family has made great achievements in war, and their mansion is governed by military law. This atmosphere is a sign of prosperity. Gu Chensha was trying to figure it out. He had been reading all kinds of books. Recently, he had been enlightened and could see the big picture. You can all leave. The servant retreated. The man who had brought him on the ship said to his foster son, Grandpa, please come downstairs with me. We have prepared food and wine downstairs. Seeing that Gu Chensha had nodded, the foster son followed. There were only 2 people left on the upper floor of the ship, a man and a woman. The woman was, of course, Lu Baiwei. She had her back to Gu Chensha, and she was wearing a light blue cloak. She had the temperament of the deep sea. The Heavenly Talisman dynasty opened the east, west, north, and south canals. The emperor named it the Yangtze River, while the north and south canals were named the Heavenly River. Lu Baiwei's voice was calm. For this reason, the emperor wrote a shocking poem on the day the canal was opened. The rolling Yangtze River flows eastward, the waves wash away all heroes. Success or failure turns to nothing. The green mountains are still there, and the setting sun is red. The white-haired fisherman and woodcutter on the riverbank are used to watching the autumn moon and the spring breeze. They meet over a pot of muddy wine. How many things have happened since ancient times, all in laughter. She slowly recited the poem, and the desolate atmosphere of history blew over. This poem was written by the Heavenly Talisman Emperor. It was spread all over the world and made scholars bow their heads. Gu Chernsha also loved the vastness of this poem, and he often secretly enjoyed it. But now he didn't know what Lu Baiwe meant. He just listened quietly and waited for her to finish reciting. He smiled and said, "I've never studied hard, so I can't talk about poetry. Why did you call me today?" Gu Chernsha. Lu Baiwe turned around. She seemed to be taller than a few months ago, and her temperament seemed to have changed. Her cultivation seemed to have reached a high level. "Even if you pretend to be a fool, you can't fool people. You're not a fool. A real fool wouldn't be able to live until now. What do you want?" Gu Chernsha immediately looked uncertain and panicked. His body also bent a little. This was the concealing technique he had practiced for so many years. How could he be easily provoked and show his true colors? "I think you already know that I'm under the Emperor's orders to be friends with you. What do you think?" Lu Baiwe spoke casually, as if this marriage had nothing to do with her and she was talking about someone else. "No, no, no." Gu Chernsha waved his hand and retreated. He was even more terrified, as if he had met a snake or a scorpion. Although he had received the news early, he didn't know what Lu Baiwe was up to. It was possible that she had set a trap for him. As early as a few years ago, this woman had let other princes beat him. She was definitely not a good person. Although it's the Emperor's orders, today is a private meeting. There's no need to be so formal. Moreover, you're a prince and I'm a subject. If this kind of attitude is spread out, I'm afraid I'll be impeached by the imperial censor. I'm a disrespectful subject. Lu Baiwe waved her hand. Her tone was somewhat arrogant. According to the rules, Gu Chernsha was a prince. Lu Baiwe's attitude was very disrespectful. However, Lu Baiwe was arrogant, even to other princes. Someone once complained that she didn't have the courtesy of a subject. Instead, she was praised by the heavenly talisman Great Emperor, saying, "This woman is a proud marquis. She has the demeanor of an ancient person." From this, it could be seen how much the Emperor doted on her. "What orders does Imperial Father have?" Gu Chernsha asked. Although he had a unique skill, he still showed a cautious and wretched appearance. "You're really annoying when you act like this." Lu Baiwe's face darkened. "Although I, Lu Baiwe, look down on all men in the world, the current emperor is a man of great talent and bold vision. He subdued evil, exterminated evildoers, saved the common people, and brought peace to the country. He even gave the women of the world a chance to stand out. He swept away thousands of years of stale things. No matter how unaccomplished you are, you should still inherit the emperor's bloodline." Gu Chernsha was dumbfounded. "What are you talking about? I met you today mainly to ask you a question." Lu Baiwe's eyes looked down from above. "Do you have the ambition to stand out in the future?" "Stand out?" Gu Chernsha took 2 steps back. "I'm a prince now. I'm the son of royalty. I'm the son of the dragon and the grandson of the phoenix. What do I need to stand out? You, a prince, are living a life worse than a commoner's. Even if you come from a well-off family in the countryside, you have dozens of servants. When you go out, you have carriages filled with gold and jade. You have food in your mouth and clothes in your hand. But you live in fear, pretending to be a fool, hiding your strength and biding your time. Even if you live, you're just a good-for-nothing. Don't you want to change?" Lu Baiwe stared at him intently, as if she wanted to see through him. Chapter 13. You disappoint me. Lu Baiwe said, "Men are most afraid of not being determined. Even in the face of adversity, one must not abandon oneself. When the heavens are about to bestow a great responsibility upon a man, it must first torture his will, tire his muscles and bones, and starve his skin. Don't you understand this? If you are ambitious, I, Lu Baiwe, will definitely fulfill your wish. If you want to cultivate, I will give you the best pills and techniques. With my Lu family's support, you will not be inferior to any prince. However, if you have no ambition, then even if the mandate of heaven is with you, it will be useless. If you don't care about human affairs, where will the mandate of heaven come from? The mandate of heaven? That's for other princes, it has nothing to do with me. Please don't drag me into this. Gu Chernsha was getting more and more afraid. I don't need your support either. Please don't harm me again. So you're saying that you're really going to be a useless piece of trash? Lu Baiyue's eyes were filled with disappointment. I know that your mother is a princess of the Xian dynasty and has many taboos, causing you to be timid and cowardly. The man that I, Lu Baiyue, am going to marry is an indomitable hero. Even in the midst of thorns, he can still talk and laugh. Wasn't the current emperor an illegitimate child 20 years ago? He was born in a lowly position and lived in a more difficult situation than you, but didn't he still defeat many opponents and rule the world? I don't have the ambition of imperial father. Gu Chencha's eyes looked out of the window, as if he was lost in thought. Seeing him being so careful, afraid of saying the wrong thing, Lu Baiyue also lost interest. After thinking for a while, her voice suddenly became louder, carrying a bewitching charm. Since you are willing to abandon yourself, I can't do anything about it. Let me tell you, with your current situation, it is impossible for you to be safe. You can't even be a rich man. You can either rise up and fight vigorously, or you will be killed by a cup of poisoned wine. Do you think you have no chance? Let me tell you, you are actually of the Xian dynasty's royal bloodline, and it contains the power of the Great Spirit God's bloodline. If I have a way to stimulate the power of God in your bloodline, your martial arts will improve by leaps and bounds. Let me ask you, are you willing or not? What? The bloodline of the Great Spirit God? Gu Chencha's breathing quickened as if he was convinced by Lu Baiyue's words. The Xian dynasty's royal family was the descendant of the Great Spirit God, and the descendants of the Xian dynasty possessed the bloodline of God in their bodies. However, it was very difficult to activate the bloodline. If the bloodline was activated by chance, they would be able to become a martial arts expert in a short period of time. However, this did not appeal to Gu Chernsha at all. He knew that the time had come, and if he continued to act like a fool, he would appear to be too shrewd. An idea popped up in his mind. Then what should I do according to your plan? A real fool would be moved by someone's words and be good at being provoked. Now, Lu Baiyue was obviously testing his reaction. Oh? From what you've said, you still have some passion in your heart. A satisfied smile appeared on Lu Baiyue's face. When she saw Gu Chencha's blood rushing to his head, she knew that her words had worked. How are you going to help me? Gu Chernsha asked straightforwardly. This is a gourd of essence-nurturing pills, constitution-enhancing pills, and marrow-cleansing pills. These are originally supplied by the royal family, so it's not that rare. However, you were embezzled from them, so I'll make it up for you. Lu Baiyue clapped her hands, and a maidservant came up with a tray. On the tray were 3 gourds and a small booklet. That booklet contains the secret technique of the Xian dynasty's royal family, the Great Spirit God technique. It's a technique between the royal grade and the emperor grade. Rumor has it that after cultivating it, one's strength will be boundless, comparable to an ancient giant spirit. However, only those with the Xian dynasty's bloodline will be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. This secret technique was obtained by my Lu family when we conquered the Xian dynasty's capital. What do you mean by this? Gu Chernsha was bewildered. The Great Spirit God technique has already been stored in the royal family's library. Did you get my father's permission to do this? Even if you try your best to catch up now, there's still a huge gap between you and the other princes. Only by cultivating the giant spirit force can you make rapid progress and stimulate your Xian dynasty bloodline. Moreover, this thing belongs to you, so you don't have to worry. I've already reported this matter to the emperor in secret, and he has already agreed. The Xian dynasty's royal family is rumored to have the bloodline of the ancient, the Great Spirit God. If you really cultivate the Great Spirit God technique, and condense the Great Spirit God's bloodline to use the giant spirit force, then you'll be a rare expert. Lu Baiyue's tone was solemn. All right, I'll accept it. When Gu Chernsha heard the two words secret memorial, he knew that Lu Baiyue was quite favored by the emperor, so much so that he had begun to entrust her with important matters. Secret memorials were only given to favored and trusted officials. Any matter, big or small, could be written in the memorials. It wasn't recorded in the official records, and it couldn't be announced to the public. He didn't expect that Lu Baiyue could actually obtain the authority to report directly to the emperor. Even the feudal officials might not have this kind of authority. He asked his little godson to come up and accept the 3 gourds of pills and the booklet. I don't dare to refuse a gift from the monarch's father. Since it's like this, I'll accept it? That's good. Actually, your current situation is your own doing. If you worked hard and cultivated, you would have reached the Grandmaster realm, obtained the Emperor's appreciation, obtained merits, and established your own residence. How would you have ended up like this? Lu Baiyue seemed to be trying her best to persuade him. All right, no problem. Gu Chernsha nodded without hesitation. Then it's a deal. Lu Baiyue said, servants serve the banquet. There's no need for a banquet. I'll go back and practice my martial arts, and prepare to make a name for myself. Gu Chernsha seemed to be really excited, and couldn't wait any longer. That's good. It's a good thing for a man to have such ambition. Lu Baiyue gave him another look. I see that you don't have much money in your pocket. Here's 10,000, you can take it back first. After a few months, the emperor will bestow you a residence, and then you can settle down. As she spoke, the maidservant brought up another plate with a stack of banknotes in the middle. The banknotes were golden in color, and there were beautiful cloud patterns printed on them. Unexpectedly, they had a faint holy aura. These were banknotes made by the imperial court, and were produced by the Celestial Designer Institute. No one could imitate them. Gu Chernsha didn't stand on ceremony. He let his godson take the banknotes, and immediately disembarked. He boarded a small boat and quietly left. Watching his back as he left, the maidservant said, Miss, it seems that the 19th prince isn't stupid. He's really biding his time. No, his behavior shows that he's really stupid. If he was smart, he would understand the gap between him and the other princes. No medicine or cultivation can make up for it, especially the Great Spirit God technique. Even the direct descendants of the imperial family had difficulty cultivating it, let alone him. If he's really smart, he just left in a huff and didn't want my gift. Lu Baiyue shook her head. If that's the case, I'll have a whole new level of respect for him. Now it looks like he's just pretending to be crazy and stupid. When it comes to benefits, he blinds his heart. I'm afraid that disaster won't last long. Sigh, I don't know what the emperor is thinking. He clearly wants to put Miss in an important position, but he gave Miss such a big problem. The 19th prince will definitely be sentenced to death in the future. At that time, it will implicate Miss and even the Lu family. The maidservant was a little lost about the future. Maybe this is the emperor's test for me. If I can't handle this matter well, how can I handle the affairs of the country in the future? Lu Baiyue said, after the 19th prince receives my gift, he will definitely train hard in martial arts. However, he will definitely not be tolerated by the other princes. If he is killed, then it will save a lot of trouble. If he can really avoid it, then it proves that he has the ability. If he really succeeds in cultivating the technique of the Great Spirit God, I'm afraid he will really be able to occupy a place. The maidservant's face was like a painting. She had a small mouth and a jade-like nose. She was also an expert and had a lot of wisdom. The emperor is broad-minded. he will be able to accommodate the 19th prince. To successfully cultivate the technique of the Great Spirit God, one must stimulate the bloodline of the ancient, the Great Spirit God. The royal family of the Xian dynasty produced many talents, but not even one appeared in 100 years. Otherwise, how could they have been destroyed by our dynasty? You must know that once the bloodline of the Great Spirit God is stimulated, one can communicate with the giant spirit god through sacrifices and obtain unparalleled divine power. If the Xian dynasty had this protection, how could it have been destroyed? Lu Baiwe looked at the boats coming and going on the river. However, I think the emperor's cultivation has reached an unimaginable level. As long as he obtains the heaven sacrifice decree, he will be able to follow the path of the Son of Heaven and abolish the true God. Then, even if the Great Spirit God is an ancient being, he will not be able to use his divine power to break through the barrier of the world. He will not be able to manifest his divine power in the world, nor will he be able to obtain sacrifices. Miss, what are you talking about? Why don't I understand? The maidservant heard Lu Baiwe talking to herself and was confused. These things are not something you can understand. Lu Baiwe waved her hand. I think this meeting with the 19th prince will not be able to be hidden from the other princes. After this, the princes will send people to ask about it. Send them away and tell them that I am in seclusion. Yes. On the shore. The little foster's son carried the bag, but his face was full of doubt. Master, why did you accept Lu Baiwe's things? Based on your personality, you should have endured it. There are 3 reasons. First, if I had endured it and not been moved by benefits, then I would have been suspected. Lu Baiwe is smart and would have seen through it. I would only be greedy for small benefits and forget to keep a low profile. That would make me look really stupid. This is called blending with the light. Second, I have learned other martial arts, but I can't reveal it now. Now that I am borrowing Lu Baiwe's gift, I can use it in a justifiable way and not be falsely accused. This is called beating someone at their own game. Third, I wanted to see what Lu Baiwe and father are thinking. Why did they want me to practice the giant spiritual energy? Gu Chensha thought deeply. Master is really far-sighted. The little foster's son admired him from the bottom of his heart. What about the pills and money? With this money we will have more money on hand. 10,000 is not a small amount. Even the annual salary of a Jun Wang is not that much. The paper money of the imperial court was very precious. 1 yuan could be exchanged for 1 tael of silver. Its purchasing power was very solid. As for the pills, I don't need them anymore. I will give them to you to strengthen your foundation. There are some things that I can't handle personally, so I will have to rely on you. The higher your martial arts, the better. I will go back and read this book carefully. If there is really something to learn, you can also practice it. Gu Chensha had learned the first move of the Son of Heaven's investiture art. The sun and moon shine together, the sun and moon refining. He no longer needed to learn any other divine art. However, the path of martial arts could be broad and profound. He could observe many martial arts and focus on one. Moreover, the Great Spirit God art was rumored to be created by an ancient giant. That ancient giant was the protector of the ancient Son of Heaven. It might have something to do with the Son of Heaven's investiture art. Returning to the courtyard of the imperial palace, Gu Chensha flipped open the Great Spirit God art. What entered his eyes was a lifelike giant. His muscles were tight and his fists were clenched tightly. His shoulders were wide and thick, as if he had endless energy. On this giant's body, there were dense acupoints and meridians. There were diagrams of how to circulate energy. Other than that, there were small words beside it that explained many cultivation methods. This cultivation was not about martial arts move. It was about meditation, spiritual training, and training one's willpower. Gu Chensha's martial arts foundation was very deep. After cultivating the Son of Heaven's investiture art, his mind became more agile and his wisdom increased. Now that he looked at the Great Spirit God art, it was even more profound. He did not cultivate it. He only secretly experienced it, brewing and thinking. The martial arts knowledge repeatedly tempered and settled in his mind. Finally, the essence came out and shone through his whole body. His martial spirit was intertwined with each other. It was like a spark, flickering non-stop. After a long time, he opened his eyes. As the aura of his muscles and bones surged, he had already landed outside the window. His left hand held the sun, and his right hand held the moon. It was the ultimate skill of the sun and moon refinement. His movements were elegant. Sometimes he was like a falling autumn leaf, sometimes he was like a surging river, sometimes he was like a rocket, and sometimes he was like a falling comet. The force of hardness and softness had truly reached the peak. His spirit could be said to be pure as snow. After a long period of refinement, he felt cold and hot chi rising in his body at the same time. They collided with each other, like ice and charcoal in a furnace. This was the critical moment of the Son of Heaven's investiture art's sun and moon refinement. He was in a daze, his mind wandering beyond the heavens, his spirit and flesh separating. It was as if he saw heaven and earth as a great furnace, all living things being refined within. Those that transcended were all the essence, while there were even more creatures that became impurities, sinking down into eternal damnation. Heaven and earth as the furnace, creation as the work, yin and yang as the charcoal, and all living things as the copper. He suddenly understood a few lines of the Son of Heaven's investiture art. Everyone was in pain and suffering. Those that could endure would stand out and become the essence of heaven and earth. Bang! Chi exploded in his body. He was like a butterfly breaking out of a cocoon. His 100 acupoints all breathed in and out. There was a faint feeling of the chi of heaven and earth entering his body. This was the sign of touching the Tao realm. Of course, this was just touching. Once he had the sense of chi, he was still far from the true Tao realm. He could eat chi and abstain from eating food. He could live by absorbing the essence of heaven and earth. Once he did so, he would no longer be a mortal. Mortals lived like flies and dogs all day. In the end, it was still for the 3 meals a day. Even if it was an important matter of the imperial court, it was nothing more than to fill the stomachs of the common people. Chapter 14. A whirlwind rose in the entire courtyard. The shadows of people swayed, and all the weeds fell, as if they had been ravaged by the fierce wind. Many insects in the grass were killed by the strong wind. This was Gu Chencha's diligent practice of martial arts. He tried to figure out the Son of Heaven's investiture of God technique, studied the Great Spirit God technique, gained some insights and gained a sense of chi, so he was not inferior to a great master of martial arts who had painstakingly cultivated for many years. This kind of progress could no longer be described as godly speed, it could even be called a miracle. However, he had obtained the heaven sacrificial talisman and possessed the ability to communicate with the heavens. Such progress was understandable. The essence of martial arts flowed in his heart. Gu Chencha's entire body was in a state of forgetting himself and everything else. His chi activity was mixed, and his martial arts cultivation reached a new level. Bang! His body pounced forward like a weightless kite. Riding the wind, he pounced onto a large rock at the edge of the courtyard. The boulder was as hard as iron, but when it came into contact with Gu Chencha's palm, it turned into tofu. A palm print appeared on it, 3 inches deep, and the lines were very clear. But the boulder did not crack. Gu Chencha rubbed his palm again, and the palm print was erased. The hard rock was like mud under his palm. His kung fu had already reached the realm of turning stone into mud. This prince's martial arts are becoming more and more marvelous. I think it's rare even among the princes. The little godson's mind was shaken as he watched, and he continuously praised. There's nothing magical about it. Gu Chunsha did not become arrogant. Instead, he became serious. I'm just a person who works behind closed doors. I haven't experienced a bloody battle. I can't be compared to those princes who have fought with the barbarians on the battlefield and bathed in blood. Even though the world was at peace and the 100 countries had been destroyed, there were still demons and barbarians causing trouble in the wilderness beyond the Great Yong dynasty. The so-called demonic barbarians did not belong to humans. Let's talk about barbarians first. They looked exactly the same as humans, but they had the face of a human but the heart of a beast. They didn't think of themselves as humans, and their ancestors were also beasts. For example, there were barbarians beyond the Great Wall who claimed that their ancestors were wolves. The totem they worshipped and their ancestors were also the wolf god. They ate raw meat, drank blood, and even ate humans. What benevolence, righteousness, morality, propriety, justice, honor, and shame. Therefore, even if they looked like humans, no one would think that they were humans. Unlike the 100 kingdoms of the past, such as the Xian dynasty, although they were opposed to the Yonko, they were still ruled by virtue of benevolence, righteousness, and the law. Understanding etiquette, knowing when to advance and when to retreat, keeping order, and respecting the will of the heavens, this is what it means to be a person. Otherwise, he would be a beast. These barbarians often invaded, and there was no end to killing them. Behind them, there were evil spirits causing mischief. They hid in the depths of the boundless wilderness, and were always a great threat to the human race. Even with heavenly talisman great emperor's great talent and strategy, he couldn't eradicate them all. He could only build a huge stone wall to defend against the barbarian invasion. Every time the world was in chaos, the monstrous devil kings behind the barbarian tribes would appear in the human kingdoms, spreading fallacies and heresy, bewitching people's hearts, and turning people into beasts. These were all recorded in the history books. Every time he read this, Gu Chensha's heart ached. Pacifying the barbarians was the #1 national policy. After the princes came of age, they would even go to the border to fight with the barbarians. They would hone their martial skills and make contributions. Every 5 years, the emperor would personally lead the army to fight against the barbarians. Currently, there were a few princes with high status and were conferred the title of Grand Prince. This was because they had followed the emperor on 2 expeditions, killing countless demons and barbarians. Prince, don't belittle yourself. Every 5 years, the imperial court will wage war against the barbarians. Next year will be the 15th year of Heavenly Talisman Emperor's reign. The emperor will definitely lead the army to conquer the barbarians again. The princes will also have to follow by his side. At that time, I will be able to make contributions and make a name for myself. The little godson was thinking about his bright future. Don't be fooled by the 18th prince's arrogance. Compared to those princes who have been conferred the title of Grand Prince, he is not worth mentioning. When the 18th Prince Gu Hongsha came of age, he would be conferred the title of Duke. However, he was still far from being conferred the title of Grand Prince. As for those princes who had been conferred the title of Grand Prince, in Gu Chensha's opinion, they had probably already stepped into the Tao realm. Even though he had mastered the godly skills, he lacked actual combat experience. A true expert was trained step by step on the battlefield. He knew that he was still far from being a true expert and did not dare to be arrogant. After the news of the emperor getting Liu Baiwei to get close to me spread, I became the target of public criticism. The capital has become troubled. I feel that I should leave this place now. Gu Chensha thought for a while. Later, I will suggest to the emperor that I should make contributions to the country and head to the border to kill the demons and barbarians. Prince, isn't this very dangerous? If you don't leave the capital, many people will not be able to do anything to you. Once you leave, all sorts of plots and schemes will follow. I'm afraid you will be in danger." The little godson was shocked. "I know. Even though the capital is good, it is also a difficult place. In this place, I can't use my martial arts and am restricted in every way. Why don't I go to the border? Even though it is hard, I can train my martial arts and fly as high as the sky." Gu Chernsha had already thought it through. He had lived in the capital for a long time, and the power structure was complicated. He was restricted in every way, and it was inconvenient for him to do anything. Of course, the capital was prosperous and comfortable, while the border was hard and dangerous. Many princes were unwilling to go there. To Gu Chernsha, the border was much safer than the capital. In fact, Gu Chernsha had other plans. When he arrived at the border, he could use the heavenly sacrifice talisman to his heart's content and obtain a large number of tiger wolf pills. At the same time, he could gather talents and achieve great achievements. Prince has thought it through. The little godson was also thinking, then should I write a book and give it to the imperial clan court to present to the emperor? I'm just afraid that the imperial clan court will interfere. No worries. This is something that many people wish for. Why would they interfere? Gu Chernsha waved his hand. Of course, I can't write it now. I'll do it in a few months. What I want to do now is to create a false impression that Liu Baiwei has bestowed me with martial arts and that I've been practicing hard. I can't control myself and am itching to make a move. The Son of Heaven's investiture art that he cultivated was a world-shocking secret art. It could not be exposed to the public. Now that he had beat him at his own game, he could also explain the origin of his martial arts. Of course, this matter could not be rushed. Autumn passed and winter came. It gradually became colder. The north wind whistled and the trees were bare. There was a bleak atmosphere everywhere. Gu Chernsha's life became better. He read and practiced martial arts every day. The weeds in the courtyard were all pulled out. He even bought a large amount of resources, making the whole house look brand new. This caused him to be in high spirits. However, it attracted the attention of some people. In a manor 30 miles away from the capital, there were pavilions everywhere. However, they were not classical. They were all decorated with new things. There was a tall tower built in the center of the lake. It was made entirely of glass. When the sun shone on it, it shone brightly like a crystal tower. In this tower, the 18th prince, Gu Hongsha, was fishing. He actually did not use bait. He threw a long line down and went deep into the water. His own spirit, through the fishing hook, was able to perceive the situation in the water clearly. Suddenly, his hand trembled slightly. The fishing hook darted under the water and hooked a big black fish. This big black fish weighed tens of kilograms. It had a mouth full of sharp teeth. It was hiding in the mud, but the fishing hook was stuck in its mouth and thrown up. Other people let the fish eat the bait when fishing. However, he used his strength like a god. The fishing hook was like a living thing, shuttling under the water. My Dragon King force is truly miraculous. The servant stood at the side with his hands by his side and praised respectfully. How is Gu Chernsha? The 18th prince, Gu Hongsha asked. After he accepted Liu Baiwei's elixirs, 10,000 notes, and a copy of the Great Spirit God technique, he has been practicing martial arts hard day and night. He seems to have achieved something. From this, it can be seen that he was pretending to be a fool in the past. The servant inquired clearly. This is the real fool. A cold smile appeared on Gu Hongsha's face. He was tricked by Liu Baiwei. Does he think that elixirs and techniques can make up for the loss of time? Martial arts must be practiced from a young age. If he misses the best time, nothing can make up for it. My lord, next year will be the 3rd barbarian expedition. The emperor will personally lead the expedition again. The scale this time is bigger than before. The emperor has accumulated a huge capital for the past 5 years. He wants to exterminate the barbarian wolf, barbarian snake, and barbarian ape races. The servant reported the news he heard. I heard from the inner court that the emperor wants to see which prince contributed the most and prepared the 9 reincarnation elixir as a reward. 9 reincarnation elixir. Gu Hongsha gasped. This is the legendary ancient elixir. It does not belong to the mortal world. It is said that the ancient emperors sacrificed evildoers to the heavens to obtain this elixir. Father obtained this elixir when he exterminated the life and death sect. I thought I had consumed it, but it is still here. The servant did not speak, allowing Gu Hongsha to think. After a long time, Gu Hongsha waved his hand. Leave. That Gu Chernsha does not need to keep an eye on him. You should keep an eye on number 7, number 10, and boss. Do you understand? I understand. The servant knelt down on one knee and left. At the same time, Lu Baiwei was also listening to the report in the Yuan public house. Gu Chencha's every move seemed to be under her control. Miss, this is the situation. The 19th prince has been practicing diligently every day, regardless of day or night. He has almost reached the next level. The female guard held the paper with the records. However, it seems like he has not activated the giant spirit bloodline. It seems impossible for him to activate the giant spirit bloodline. Lu Baiwei took the paper and looked at the summary written on it. Should I send someone to keep an eye on him? The female guard asked. Of course. Report to me every move he makes. Lu Baiwei said. This is a small matter. How is the big thing I asked you to do? We have found the ancient ruins according to the mysterious map. No one knows about it. The next step is to excavate further. The female guard said. All right. The ruins are the ancient battlefield. Rumor has it that Gu Tianzi Su fought with the demon army. You have to prevent the demon aura from invading. I will go there in a few days. Lu Baiwei crossed her fingers and sounded excited. The first snow in the 14 years of Heavenly Talisman finally fell. In the beginning, it was just small particles. In the middle of the night, it suddenly became bigger in the morning. It covered the sky like goose feathers. In a blink of an eye, the world was pure white without any other color. Gu Chernsha sat in the snow and cultivated his spirit. He was not cold at all. He only wore a thin shirt, but there was no heat coming from his body. He was like wood and stone. The snowflakes did not melt when they landed on him. In a blink of an eye, he turned into a snowman. Only his eyes were bright as he looked at the sky. Chapter 15. As Gu Chencha's cultivation base became more and more profound, he gradually gained a new understanding of the Son of Heaven's divine investiture arts, refining of sun and moon. Right now, he was at the peak of the 4th level of the mortal realm, but ordinary grandmasters were no match for him. The Son of Heaven God investiture art was unprecedented. It allowed one to communicate with the heavens and the soul to penetrate the sun and moon. Even though he had just scratched the surface, it was far superior to other divine arts. Moreover, he didn't need to cultivate in secret anymore. He could do it openly. Without a psychological barrier, his progress was even faster. Puff! He stood up in the heavy snow and shook his body slightly. The snow bounced off like flying stones and hit the wall. Tiny holes appeared on the wall, as if they had been made by a gun. Then, he opened his mouth and blew. The snow that filled the sky above the courtyard was blown back. Not bad, not bad. My cultivation has improved. Gu Chernsha flashed again and returned to the yard under the eaves. He was so fast that he didn't leave a trace in the snow. This was the traceless snow treading technique. His godson's martial arts improved rapidly. His eyes were serious, his hands and feet were agile, and his moves were powerful and fast. He had taken a small portion of Lu Baiwei's constitution-enhancing pill, Peiyuan pill, and marrow-cleansing pill. His physique had improved, and the Tiger Wolf pill's medicinal power was fully unleashed. He was close to the perfection realm. Unfortunately, he didn't have a superior cultivation technique. The Great Spirit God technique wasn't suitable for his godson. As for the Son of Heaven God investiture art, it was even more useless. But his strength was already comparable to a martial arts master. Master, no one came to spy on us today, right? His godson went out to check. There was only heavy snow and cold wind. Where would anyone come from? Everyone left today. After all, it's so cold. Everyone needs to hide in their rooms to warm themselves. Who would spy on us in the snow? Gu Chensha used his spiritual sense. Nothing could escape his spiritual sense. I heard that after reaching the Tao realm, there's a transformation called the Heavenly Eye. Even an ant can't escape my spiritual sense within a few thousand miles. I don't know when I can reach that level. Grandpa, it's snowing today. Do you want to go out for a walk? His adopted son's martial arts had improved recently, so he wasn't afraid of the cold. That's fine. You stay at home and look after her. I'll go out alone and take a look at Nanshan Hill. Gu Chensha also loved snow. Moreover, he had recently mastered his kung fu, so he wanted to go to Nanshan to hunt tigers and wolves for sacrifices. He wondered if he could get a few more tiger-wolf pills. The tiger-wolf pill was an ancient pill, and each one was worth a lot. If he could sell it through the market, then he would no longer be short of money. Just go out and admire the snow. I'm here at home. His godson knew that Gu Chensha's martial arts were excellent and his movements were extremely fast. If he could not keep up with him, he would be a burden if he went out. Gu Chensha nodded. His body flickered and he left the courtyard. With a few leaps, he disappeared into the boundless snow. Outside of the capital, there was a mansion in the south. It occupied an area of 400 to 500 mu. The walls were tall, the trees were deep and serene, and the water was gurgling. It was next to a mountain that looked like an ingot. It could be said that one's head was resting on a mountain of gold and jade. The feng shui was so good that it was rarely seen in the world. This mansion was deep within. In the most central area, a copper hall was built. That's right, the entire hall was made of pure copper. The eaves were inlaid with gold and silver. Looking from the sky, it was a magnificent sight like a temple of gods. This hall covered an area of dozens of acres. In the square, there were many copper pillars arranged according to the stars in the sky, vaguely forming a huge formation. Logically speaking, using so much metal to build a palace hall was not suitable for people to live in. During a thunderstorm, it was easy to attract lightning, and only death awaited. Moreover, such a large copper palace hall would probably consume an astronomical amount of wealth. On the horizontal board of this hall, there were two big words, Thunder Hall. In the middle of the hall sat a man. He looked to be in his 20s, had a sturdy build, and his face carried a strong murderous aura. He wore a brocade embroidered with cloud patterns, and his palms were wide and thick. This was the appearance of a peerless overlord in the books of physiognomy. He moved like a wolf and flew like an eagle. He had an aura that could capture one's soul. With just a slight movement, his aura burned fiercely, making people shudder. 10th Master. Suddenly, a man rushed over and knelt at the entrance of the copper hall. Lei Meng, have you reported the matter I asked you to investigate? 10th Master stood in the middle of the empty copper hall and spoke with a metallic voice. He was the 10th Prince, Gu Zhensha. Zhensha was thunder. Thunder Slash was cultivated in this pure copper hall. It would greatly sharpen one's spirit, and one's aura would also gradually change. The 10th Prince's mother came from an ancient family, the Lei clan. With the Lei clan's wealth, it was easy to build such a mansion and copper hall for the 10th Prince. Lei Meng, who was kneeling, wore a pitch-black armor. He looked strong and valiant, and had a murderous aura around him. He was a warrior who had experienced hundreds of battles. From his movements one could tell that he was good at hiding and assassinating. 10th Master, we have bribed the eunuchs in the palace. We know that the 19th prince has been practicing martial arts every day and has made some progress. He is very satisfied and went straight to Nanshan today. It seems like he is going to hunt. Lei Meng was actually aware of Gu Chen's every move. Does he think that he can become famous just because he obtained the Great Spirit God technique? 10th Prince Gu Zhensha was expressionless. Even if you activate the Great Spirit God bloodline, you are still no match for my Thunder God bloodline. 10th Master, you have already activated the Thunder God bloodline? Lei Meng raised his head in surprise. Almost. Recently, I have been practicing martial arts and I feel like I have endless power in my body. This is the prelude to activating the bloodline. Gu Zhensha stood with his hands behind his back. Send a message to the Lei clan. It is best if the old master sends the Thunder Dragon scepter to the capital. I want to use the Lei clan's heirloom to completely activate the Thunder God bloodline and reach the Dao realm. But Lei Meng hesitated. The Thunder Dragon scepter is the symbol of the clan leader. The old master won't ask for it easily. There are no buts. I am a prince, and the Lei clan needs my protection in the future. Compared to the entire world, what are the rules of the Lei clan? I think the old master knows which is more important. 10th Prince Gu Zhensha's tone was one that could not be disobeyed. Yes, yes, yes. Lei Meng nodded his head and did not dare to say anything more. 10th Prince Gu Zhensha walked forward. As for that trash 19, he wants to make a comeback? Back then, I broke his brain. Out of all the princes, he probably hates me the most. Although I don't care about that trash, he is still a prince. If someone uses him to deal with me, it will cause quite a bit of trouble. I have to deal with him now. 10th Master, do you want me to attack that trash? Lei Meng obeyed. No need. I need to borrow someone else's hand. 10th Prince Gu Zhensha waved his hand. Father allowed Lu Baiwei to get close to that trash. He already has the intention of nurturing him. If I attack now, I will be going against Father's will. If I make him unhappy, I won't have a good time either. Tell Chief Steward Shi to write me an invitation. I want to invite Lu Baiwei to a gathering tonight to discuss something important. Roger. Seeing that Gu Zhensha had no more orders, Lei Meng carefully retreated and left. Only Gu Zhensha was left in the huge copper palace. State of Dao. I must break through this and step into the state of Dao. Big brother, second brother, third brother, the fourth, seventh brother, all of you are one step ahead of me. If I don't break through, how can I compete with you in the future? Gu Zhensha suddenly punched. Bang! He used all his strength. Waves of air surged and there was wind and thunder roaring in his body. It was as if a huge dragon was about to break out of his body and fly into the sky. Creak, creak, Gu Zhensha stepped deep into the snow and breathed in the cool air. He felt indescribably comfortable and carefree. Sometimes, he really wanted to throw away all the things in Capital City and ignore the schemes there. He wanted to travel the land of infinity alone. Of course, this was just a thought. He knew that there were many eyes watching him and his every move might be under someone's control. Deep in the forest, he ran furiously and left no traces on the snow. If an ordinary person saw this, they would only feel that he had passed by in a flash. After all, his martial arts had reached the Grandmaster realm and he was cultivating the Emperor's God investiture technique. If they really fought, 2 or 3 Grandmasters of the same level might not be his match. Even if he didn't have enough battle experience, it didn't matter. Gradually, he walked for hundreds of miles and reached deeper into the mountains. Looking around, there were more mountains, white snow, and dense forests. Even a prince wouldn't go deep into the mountains when he went hunting. There shouldn't be anyone following me now, right? With my current strength, apart from Dao realm experts, I can sense everyone else. Lin Fan thought to himself. Gu Zhensha looked around. Suddenly, he burrowed into the depths of the snowy ground, completely covering himself. He used the sun and moon refining technique and completely concealed his aura. Instantly, it was like he was buried deep in a rock. Even his body scent wouldn't leak out. Although the sun and moon refining technique was just one technique, it included meditation, qi circulation, acupuncture points, breathing, movements, true meaning, space-time, heavenly star, earth pattern, longitude and latitude, soul. Gu Jinsha cultivated for several months and only grasped the surface. The more he cultivated, the more he felt that it was broad and profound. He buried himself in the snow for a full 4 hours. His mind sensed a few groups of people searching nearby. It seemed like they didn't find anything, so they went far away. As expected, those spies are really loyal. They followed me on such a cold day and reported my whereabouts to their master. Among them are Lu Baiyue's people, old 18, old 10. The sky turned dark and Gu Jinsha came out of the snow. Everything was silent. The north wind howled and the snow became heavier. The people who followed him had already disappeared. In this kind of dark night and snowy weather in the wilderness, even grandmasters couldn't last for long. Normal experts would definitely freeze to death. After getting rid of these people, Gu Jinsha was even more relaxed. He could catch tigers and wolves to refine pills. At this time, the tigers and wolves in the forest were also hiding in their nests. It was extremely easy to catch them. In the middle of the night, he had caught 3 evil wolves and 3 evil tigers. He used the 5-colored earth altar and medicinal ingredients to make sacrifices and obtained another 3 tiger-wolf pills. Unfortunately, the tiger-wolf pill can only be used once. It won't be effective the second time. If my little godson wants to increase his strength, he can only rely on himself. It will be troublesome to sell 3 tiger-wolf pills, and I don't have people to train. This is really troublesome. Gu Jinsha thought about how to use the tiger-wolf pill. The tiger-wolf pill could turn a weak person into a tiger-wolf warrior, but that was all there was to it. It was a highly sought-after item for wealthy families, but for the current Gu Jinsha, he could only exchange it for enough money because he had no one he could trust to nurture. While he was thinking, suddenly, a bright light shot into the sky and then disappeared. However, in an instant it was like lightning cutting through the sky, illuminating an area. What is that? Could it be that a treasure has been unearthed? What a strong aura! Gu Jinsha's body shot out like lightning towards the place where the bright light shot into the sky. Chapter 16. It was recorded in the history books that when a treasure was unearthed, a brilliant radiance would traverse the vast sky. Gu Chencha's spirit was roused. He executed his movement technique and moved as fast as a bird, shuttling and leaping through the forest. Very quickly, he advanced another 50 to 60 li and arrived at an even deeper part of the mountain. Why is there the smell of blood? The strong wind blew over a dense smell of blood. Gu Jinsha stopped. Not far away there was a cave. There were actually torches swaying and shadows flickering. There were corpses on the ground. All of them were dressed in black, even their heads were wrapped up. They had cat-like bodies and were holding shiny curved blades in their hands. Clear patterns could be seen on the curved blades. It was a special cold steel that had been forged and folded over thousands of times. It could chop people like tofu, and the slightest movement would cause their heads to fall. There were at least dozens of black-clothed men surrounding the valley. There were even dozens of them dead on the ground. Fresh blood dyed the snow in the cave red. In the middle of the valley sat a woman. She wore a white fox fur coat, but her body was already stained with blood. Young island lord, you are at your wits' end. That strike just now even consumed the last of your myriad sword talisman. After killing so many of our experts, can you still move now? A few of the black-clothed men's leaders pressed forward, but they didn't dare to approach. They were afraid that this woman still had the ability to counterattack. You all betrayed me. The fox fur coat woman's lips were pale, but her tone was still extremely dignified. What benefits did that Gu Hengsha give you? You were willing to be insiders and betray my Dragon Sword Island. Aren't you afraid that the overseas islands will hunt you down after finding out? Young Island Lord, you also know the current situation. The great Yong dynasty is like the sun in the sky. The great Emperor of heavenly talismans can slaughter gods. The overseas islands will fall into the hands of the imperial court sooner or later. You all are resisting stubbornly, but only death awaits you. You might as well sell it for a good price. My lord is the head of the many princes and has an illustrious reputation. He commands an army of millions and is a good master. I think young Island Lord shouldn't be so stubborn. Obediently return with us and become my 20 concubines. The leader of the black-clothed men spoke, while observing if this young Island Lord had truly lost her ability to fight. So it's someone from the overseas islands? It's even related to boss Gu Hengsha. Gu Chensha heard it clearly and thought to himself. The Crown Prince Gu Hengsha was a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering character in the royal clan. As the leader of the many princes, his martial arts were unfathomably deep, and he had long since broken through to the Tao realm. In fact, he even played a crucial role in the Heavenly Talisman Emperor's fight for the throne. Right now, he had a lofty status and authority. He spent most of his time guarding the coastal regions, going out to sea to conquer the various empires and immortal and demonic sections. It was unknown how many sects the Heavenly Talisman dynasty had annihilated in this dynasty. Many of the surviving members of these sects had escaped to the seas, waiting for an opportunity to make a comeback. The imperial court placed great importance on coastal defense. The reason why they built a canal that connected to the sea was to facilitate the transportation of war resources from the mainland to the sea. Because of this, the first prince, Gu Hengsha, was the most powerful of all the princes. Even the seventh prince, Gu Fasha, was no match for him. Of course, this was only in terms of strength, not actual cultivation. In terms of cultivation level, the seventh prince was probably a level higher. This is the person that the first prince wants. Should I save her? Gu Chensha pondered. Back then, I remember that when my mother committed suicide, the first prince's mother immediately sent her eunuchs to take away the ring my mother left behind. Back then, I didn't know the importance of the ring. It was only later that I found out that the ring was called the Giant Spirit Ring. It was forged from the finger bone left behind by the great spirit god in the mortal world. Anyone who wore it would be cleansed by the power of the ring. Their physique would change, and they would gradually become extremely strong, capable of tearing apart ferocious beasts. I will settle this debt sooner or later. Now, I'm just collecting some interest. Also, this group of people is surrounding a girl. It would be immoral if I didn't save her. Since I met her, there's no reason for me to ignore her. The black-robed men in front of him were all highly skilled. Gu Chensha didn't let his guard down. He covered his face with a cloth and advanced silently. Who is it? Just as he was about to get close, the leader of the black-robed men suddenly roared and looked in his direction. Gu Chensha shuddered. He felt as if he was being stared at by a poisonous snake. It was extremely uncomfortable. Grandmaster. Only a grandmaster would have the sensitivity to lock on to him. He immediately activated his movement technique and dashed into the crowd. Bam bam bam! A few black-robed men who were blocking his way were sent flying. They fell into the snow and fainted. He did not kill them. Instead, he used the giant spirit palm technique from the great spirit god to hold his breath. He was only trying to save someone. There was no need to kill them. He had already mastered the great spirit god's technique. Although he had not used it in actual combat and was still a little rusty, it was still extremely powerful when he used it with his strength. Waterfall slash. The snow-white glow of the blade sliced through the sky. It had the aura of breaking a waterfall. The leader of the black-robed men leaped over. His movement technique was graceful and graceful. However, the aura of his blade was filled with bloodthirst. Impressive. Gu Chunxia was bare-handed and he didn't dare to use his body to block a sharp blade, especially a blade from a grandmaster. When one reached the grandmaster realm, one could pick leaves and flowers and use grass and wood as swords to pierce through armor. Only those who cultivated to the third transformation of the Dao realm copper skin iron bones could casually allow a grandmaster to slash their bodies. He slid forwards and used the sun and moon training technique. It was like the light of the sun and moon piercing through the cracks. He was actually able to drill through the small openings of the blade. When the girl saw this, she had a weird expression on her face like she had never seen such a magical technique before. Using this technique, Gu Chunxia was in front of the girl in an instant. He grabbed her shoulder and didn't make a sound. He jumped up once more and charged out of the encirclement. Chase! The leader of the black-robed men shouted angrily and chased after them. However, they couldn't catch up. After an hour, they had completely disappeared. Gu Chunxia grabbed the girl and ran around in the forest for a long time. While he was shaking off the pursuers, he found that the girl's aura was long and endless, which was rare in his life. Her cultivation level was much higher than his, but she was injured. Her face was green as if she had been poisoned. He wandered around for a long time and finally found a hidden cave. He immediately put the girl down and let her rest. He went outside to pick up some firewood to start a fire. But when he came back with the firewood, he saw a red light illuminating the cave, making it as warm as spring. The girl took out a bead to warm herself. It was warm and masculine, which made people feel lazy. Fire bead. Gu Chunxia threw the firewood on the ground. So you have this treasure. That will save me a lot of trouble. Fire beads were very valuable. Even in the Great Yonko, only the aristocratic families had them. Each one was worth tens of thousands of dollars, and even if you had money, you might not be able to buy one. This thing was produced by the Heaven Palace sect. It was made of rare gems, and there was a mysterious spell inscribed on it. When it was used, it could be opened by rubbing it with one's palm. There was no need for that. As long as it was soaked in water, the red light would be extinguished immediately. Who are you? Why did you save me? The girl saw Gu Chunxia walking in. I just saw injustice. Are you the young master of the Dragon Sword Island? Gu Chunxia heard the black-robed man's conversation and knew the girl's identity. I've been poisoned. Can you help me up? I'll use the good luck technique to force the poison out. The girl couldn't move. Gu Chunxia nodded and walked in front of the girl. He reached out his hand. Suddenly, the girl flipped her hand. Like a giant whale coming out of the water, waves of air billowed. The power of her palm had the sound of roaring tides, enveloping Gu Chunxia from all directions. Gu Chunxia had never expected that the girl he'd saved would attack him. Fortunately, he'd been cultivating the Emperor's God sealing technique for half a year, and his spirituality was extraordinary. He could sense the approaching danger. In a hurry, he roared angrily. His left hand held the sun, and his right hand held the moon. Yin and yang changed. Day and night rotated. He took on the woman's violent attack like a raging whale. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already exchanged dozens of palms. The power of the palms shook the rocks in the cave until they fell. The cave felt like it would collapse at any moment. The pressure on Gu Chunxia increased. Every time he exchanged a palm, he felt like the power of the opponent's palm was like a raging sea. It was endless and he couldn't breathe. He could be killed at any moment. This girl is not a martial arts master, nor is she in the ordinary realm. She must have stepped into the Tao realm. After taking on 30 palms, Gu Chunxia finally couldn't take it anymore. He was sent flying and his organs were damaged. Blood spurted out from his mouth. It's rare for a martial arts master to cultivate to such a realm. You can actually take 30 palms from my raging whale frenzy palm. The girl stood up and spat out black blood. The poison on her face dissipated a little. She'd actually used her palms against Gu Chensha to force out a lot of the poison in her body. I saved you, so why did you still want to kill me? Gu Chensha knew that things weren't good. Even though he was injured, he didn't panic. He rolled to the entrance of the cave and secretly adjusted his breathing, trying to recover from his injuries. He was sure that this girl was a Tao realm expert. Even if he cultivated the Emperor's God sealing technique, he hadn't cultivated it for long. His level was suppressed by the opponent. I, Long Yuyun, will never trust anyone. The girl's face turned cold. Your martial arts are extremely profound, and you have boundless strength. However, your combat experience is poor. There's no killing intent on you, which means that you've lost your life. You must be a rich and powerful disciple who has been nurtured with good resources. This place is close to the capital, and I can't even guess the grade of your cultivation art. The Heavenly Talisman Emperor collected all the books in the world and plundered the martial arts of the immortals, demons, and gods. Only the royal family would have such a cultivation art. All the signs point to you being surnamed Gu, a member of the royal family, or even a prince. My Dragon Sword Island and the royal family of Great Yong have a deep grudge. Do you think I should do this? This girl can actually analyze so accurately with such little information. How terrifying! Or is it because I have too little combat experience that I'm full of flaws? Gu Chensha thought quickly, reviewing his gains and losses. He wasn't flustered. Although he'd played the fool in the royal palace for many years, he hadn't experienced killing or war. He didn't have much life experience. On the other hand, this Long Yuyun in front of him was an expert who had experienced countless battles. It was laughable that he had tried to save her. Seeing that Gu Chensha was about to escape at the entrance of the cave, Long Yuyun didn't intend to chase after him. Instead, she took a deep breath. An indescribable energy in the air quickly condensed into a faint green mist, entering the major acupoints of her body. Her complexion became redder and redder. This is submission of Qi inertia. Submission of Qi was to sense the spiritual Qi in the air and absorb it into one's body. It was completely otherworldly. Spiritual Qi was the most profound energy. It could transform the body, shape the soul, temper the primordial spirit, condense the will, comprehend the great Tao, and many other things. Now, Long Yuyun was rapidly absorbing the spiritual Qi of heaven and earth to cleanse the poison in her body. I can't let her recover. Otherwise, I won't be able to escape. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.